subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Felt a chill down his spine. At this moment, he felt that the discomfort he would experience in this experiment might not be just a little, but a billion times. Nightcrawler didn't hesitate and nodded directly. Okay, I accept. Pain? I have endured a lot of pain myself. I believe I can handle this experiment. Su Luo saved him, so he already owed the other party his life. So even if there are no rewards for this experiment, he will still do it. Definitely, this reward made Nightcrawler quite excited. Restoring his vision. As a blind person, this has always been his dream. He also wants to see this beautiful world with his own eyes. Unfortunately, modern technology cannot achieve this. Now, Su Luo promises to help him restore his vision, which naturally makes him very happy. Nightcrawler extends his hand, happy cooperation. Su Luo shakes hands with him, with a hint of joy in his voice, happy cooperation. Su Luo speaks up. Let's go. I'll take you to the laboratory. Nightcrawler hesitates. Don't we take a break? It's so late. Su Luo shakes his head. I'm not tired. Nightcrawler, you're not tired, but I am. I've been working all day and even organized community security at night. Both mentally and physically, I'm completely exhausted. Su Luo continues. It's okay, your small law firm hasn't had much business lately. You can rest well tomorrow during the day. Su Luo mutters to himself. Your recent clients will all be invited to better law firms by me at a high cost. So you will really have a lot of free time recently. You don't have to worry about work. I've taken care of it. You don't have a job anymore. Upon hearing Su Luo's words, Nightcrawler sighs. Okay, let's go. Immediately, Su Luo takes Nightcrawler to the secret biological laboratory prepared by Kurt. Su Luo says to Nightcrawler, lie down on the operating table. Operating table? Nightcrawler feels a slight unease in his heart. Su Luo reassures him. It's okay, today I will just conduct some tests and examinations on you. Nightcrawler lies down on the operating table. Su Luo starts bringing in instruments and conducts a full-body examination on Nightcrawler. Then, he proceeds with actions such as drawing blood and even performing surgery. Definitely, this is done under the premise of injecting Nightcrawler with anesthesia. Soon, Su Luo discovers the reason why Nightcrawler has such a powerful auditory system. After his eyes were chemically blinded, his other senses were strengthened, especially his hearing. Under the influence of that special chemical composition, Nightcrawler's ears have evolved. They have developed eardrums as auditory organs, allowing him to hear high-frequency sounds and clearly distinguish different types of sounds and pulse patterns. He can capture extremely faint sounds from far range and has the function of detecting sonar. 080 number 7 artificial radioactive chemical substance. So arrogant. 3 Dajon. The incredibly powerful hearing of Daredevil allows him to measure distances, discern directions, and even form somewhat blurry images through sound. What Su Luo needs to do now is to find out the process and principles of the special chemical substance's impact on Daredevil. After a thorough examination of Daredevil, Su Luo has gained a deep understanding of his body. After Su Luo finished reviewing all the data, Daredevil slowly woke up. The anesthesia slowly disappeared, and the pain throughout his body surged. Especially his brain, it felt like being hammered, and his ears felt like they were being cut open. The pain was almost unbearable. Even Daredevil felt a bit overwhelmed. He took a deep breath, his forehead veins bulging, and beads of cold sweat constantly appearing. Su Luo's voice sounded in his ear. How are you? Can you bear this pain? Daredevil forced a smile. It's bearable within my limits. As a tough guy, Daredevil naturally couldn't say he couldn't bear it. He could only say it was bearable. But the pain in his body made his voice tremble slightly. But this experiment, it's definitely not easy. The difficulty is quite high. Is that so? Su Luo asked immediately. By the way, do you remember the radioactive chemical substance that caused damage to your eyes? Daredevil shook his head when he heard this. I don't know either. I was just trying to save an old man who was hit by a truck, and as a result, I was contaminated by the radioactive chemical substance in the truck. After that, I was immediately taken to the hospital, and as for what radioactive chemical substance it was, I don't know. Suluo couldn't help but say, didn't you investigate why you gained this ability from the 877? Aren't you curious about the principle behind it that made you become what you are now? Daredevil awkwardly said, I mainly studied law all along, and my knowledge in other areas is relatively weak. Even if I'm curious, I don't have that ability. Suluo nodded when he heard this, but he furrowed his brows slightly. After all, without knowing the consequences caused by the radioactive substance, he couldn't make complete calculations and deductions. He couldn't complete the correct reverse reasoning. Thinking of this, Suluo continued, do you have any other influence from that truck? Do you know which company the truck belonged to? Why would a company transport radioactive chemical substances? Daredevil shook his head. It's been too long, my memory of that time has become blurry. But then Daredevil spoke up. Although I don't remember, there should be records at the police station from that year. After all, it was a traffic accident, so the police took photos of the scene and drew a diagram. They also collected and preserved traces and physical evidence related to the case, made on-site investigation records, and made relevant records of both me and the driver. If you want to find the truck driver, you can start from there. Suluo's eyes brightened when he heard this. Since there were still clues, he could continue to investigate. Perhaps he could find out what kind of radioactive chemical substance it was from the records, or find the truck driver from back then and inquire about the composition of the radioactive chemical substance. Very well, this clue is quite good. Suluo immediately rushed to the nearby computer. Sitting in his seat, he began to rapidly type on the keyboard. A large amount of code was constantly inputted into the computer. Soon, he hacked into the local police's database. He immediately asked, by the way, which police station did you give your statement at back then? Daredevil answered, it was the police station in Hell's Kitchen. Hearing this, Suluo nodded slightly. He directly accessed the relevant database of the police station in Hell's Kitchen. Once inside, Suluo began to search for the name Matthew Murdoch and set the age and the time of the incident. But he didn't find any relevant records. Suluo furrowed his brows slightly. I didn't find your statement. Daredevil stood up slightly and scratched his head. How is that possible? I remember it very clearly. The police asked both me and the driver to give statements, and they also went to the scene to investigate and take photos. They also collected and preserved traces and physical evidence related to the case, made on-site investigation records, and made relevant records of both me and the driver. If you want to find a truck driver, you can start from there. How could there be none? Nightcrawler frowned slightly. Suluo also furrowed his brows. Could it be that the data has been deleted? Nightcrawler suddenly realized, oh, I know, it's a matter of time. When I was young, everything was in paper files. Computers and the internet weren't popular yet. So many records were handwritten or typed and saved in paper files. So those files weren't uploaded into the computer. The file should be kept in paper form in the archives of the district police station in Hell's Kitchen. Suluo exited the police system, so I need to go to the district police station and take a look. He looked at Nightcrawler. Let's go, I'll send you off. You can go back and rest. Continue tomorrow. Upon hearing this, Nightcrawler's body stiffened. He swallowed and forced a smile. Continue tomorrow? Suluo nodded. Of course. Nightcrawler felt the pain in his body, and his smile became even more forced. Suluo left the laboratory with Nightcrawler. He hailed a taxi for Nightcrawler and let him go directly. After all, Matthew was Nightcrawler, not a weak, ordinary person. He didn't need Suluo to send him. After seeing Nightcrawler off, Suluo headed towards the district police station. In no time, he arrived at the police station. A relatively grand building appeared in front of him. The district police station in Hell's Kitchen. Although it was already late at night, the police station was still brightly lit, and criminals were occasionally caught and taken in by the officers. It was bustling, as if it wasn't late at night at all. If it were an ordinary police station, there wouldn't be so much activity at this hour. It wouldn't be so lively. At most, there would be a few officers on duty. Whereas here, it was full of police officers. There was no other way. This was Marvel, New York. This was Hell's Kitchen. The crime rate was incredibly high. Su Luo stood on the rooftop, overlooking the building in front of him, feeling a slight headache. It's so late, yet there are still so many people. Really, the criminals in Hell's Kitchen are too active. So many people committing crimes in the middle of the night. This makes it more difficult for me to infiltrate. He took out his phone and looked at the screen. On it was a blueprint of the building. It was the structure of the district police station. It was sent to him by Kurt just now. After carefully examining the layout of the entire police station, he put his phone back in his pocket. The archives were in a room on the north side of the 5th floor, right at the front of the police station. He couldn't possibly climb in from the front, and there were no windows facing outside in the archives. He could only enter from the back, then traverse the corridor to get to the rooms in front. Moreover, next to the archives was an office of a detective team, so he had to be very careful. He quickly slipped into the small forest on the side of the police station. Activating his sound concealment technique, he rushed to the back of the police station. Then, he climbed up to the 5th floor. Through a window in a restroom, he silently climbed in. Just at that moment, the sound of flushing echoed, and the door of the restroom was opened. Su Luo instantly felt his hair stand on end, and quickly leaped up, lying on the ceiling. Then, a police officer walked out of the restroom and headed towards the sink outside. After the officer left, Su Luo prepared to crawl out of the restroom. At this moment, the restroom door opened, and Su Luo quickly stopped what he was doing and once again lay flat on the ceiling. 2 police officers walked in. "Officer George, have you found any leads on the case at the harbor? Have you discovered who killed so many people?" A young officer walked to the edge of the toilet. The other middle-aged officer shook his head. "We haven't found anything. We only found out that the deceased were local gang members. As for those ninjas, we couldn't find their identities at all. They're probably illegal immigrants from Japan." At that moment, George's phone rang. "Hello, daughter. I'm still working overtime. What do you want to eat? Just buy something random and drive carefully." "Okay, got it." The young officer next to them spoke up. "Sir, I envy you for having such a considerate daughter. That little brat of mine gives me a headache every day." George laughed heartily. Kids are like that. They'll become more sensible when they grow up. After whispering to each other, the 2 officers left. Seeing that the 2 officers had finally left, Su Luo breathed a sigh of relief. Next, he had to leave through the entrance, only needing to pass by a detective's office to reach the archives. However, he didn't know how many people were in the corridor outside. If there were many people, it would be more troublesome for him to reach the archives. Immediately, he jumped down, landed on the ground, and quietly looked outside. There were quite a few people walking in the corridor, although it was not as lively as the lobby on the 1st floor. It was still crowded. At the same time, he also saw the archives not far away. Seeing this, Su Luo frowned slightly, realizing that it would be a bit more troublesome to get there. He didn't go out directly. After all, if he did, he would be discovered. He quickly recalled the layout of the police station in his mind. In an instant, a bright idea flashed in his mind. He quickly exited the restroom and ran toward the other side. Soon, he found a narrow door on the 5th floor. He saw the main switch in front of him and turned it off directly. Instantly, the 5th floor was pitch black. A series of noisy voices erupted. "What's going on? Did the power go out? Why is it so dark? Did the circuit break? Damn it. Only our 5th floor has no power. What's happening? You want to run? Stop right there. Thank goodness the office has emergency lights. Otherwise, this little thief would have escaped." After turning off the main switch, Su Luo quickly rushed out and climbed towards the archives from the ceiling. The whole process took only a few seconds. When he rushed into the archives, flashlights in the corridor illuminated one by one, lighting up the entire corridor. Su Luo was on the ceiling of the archives. A beam of light suddenly lit up, making Su Luo's hair stand on end. He froze on the ceiling, completely motionless, looking towards the source of the light. His muscles tensed, ready to strike at any moment. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a police officer from the archives. He turned on the flashlight on his phone and shone it outside the iron bars. The archives were separated by iron bars. Inside the iron bars were the archive materials and the officers who organized and retrieved them. Outside the iron bars were the officers who came to take or store the materials. Clear division of labor. The archive officer cursed. Damn it, all the words I painstakingly typed are gone. What the hell happened? Did the circuit get old? Or did something happen to the circuit breaker? Damn it, those maintenance guys are just a bunch of useless slackers. Muttering curses, he pushed open the iron door, closed it, and walked outside. What the hell is going on here? He walked directly out of the archives room. Su Luo seized the opportunity and rushed into the archives room, took out his phone, and quickly searched for the archival materials from the era when Nightcrawler had an accident. He moved through the archives room like a flash of lightning. Very quickly, he found the archival materials from that era. His eyes scanned through the files like a scanner. Finally, they stopped at the file named Matthew Murdoch. Su Luo's eyes lit up. Found it. He quickly pulled it out and flipped through it. Whoosh! He rapidly flipped through the information. His eyes quickly glanced over the words on it. Soon, he finally saw the words truck carrying goods. He quickly looked to the side. Number 7 artificial radioactive chemical substance. Seeing this, Su Luo's eye twitched. Number 7 artificial radioactive chemical substance? What is this? He furrowed his brows slightly, continued flipping through, and finally noted down the driver's relevant information. It seems that he can only inquire about the information from the driver. Number 7 artificial radioactive chemical substance. It seems to be this kind of artificially manufactured radioactive chemical substance that caused Nightcrawler 5.2's evolution, giving him superhuman hearing beyond ordinary people. Is this the 7th type of artificial radioactive chemical substance developed by a certain company? Su Luo didn't know. He only knew that if he found the driver, he should be able to find information about this chemical substance. After completing these tasks, Su Luo immediately left. All of this happened in a very short period of time. He opened the door of the archives room. Outside was still dim because the lights hadn't been turned on yet. Some police officers were heading towards the electric gate. He quickly blended into the dim crowd and flew towards the restroom. He had just entered the restroom. The lights suddenly turned on. A police officer stood in front of him. The two of them faced each other, both surprised by the other's presence. The scene fell silent for a second or two, and both of them instinctively didn't move. The police officer broke the silence. "What are you doing here?" Su Luo honestly replied, "Looking for something." The police officer was silent for a moment, surprised that someone came to the police station to look for something. He continued, "What? Need help finding it? Or should I do it myself?" Su Luo shook his head. "I'm leaving." The police officer spoke again. "I've never seen such an arrogant person in the police station before." After saying that, he reached for the handcuffs at his waist. Su Luo a cet instanti. He directly struck the police officer's neck with a knife hand strike. Instantly, the police officer fell completely silent. He placed the police officer in one of the restroom stalls. Then he rushed out of the restroom. Just as he rushed out of the restroom, spider telepathy activated. A tearing air sound rang out. A voice exclaimed, "Who are you? Why did you infiltrate the police station?" 081 Steel Body Perfection Experiment Call. A pale figure rushed towards Su Luo and threw a punch. Su Luo leaped to the side, spraying cobwebs that stuck to the nearby buildings. He flew past, avoiding the opponent's attack. When his spider telepathy was activated, he knew that there were spider ability users around him. Unexpectedly, it was Ghost Spider Gwen. Su Luo murmured, "Why is Gwen here?" His mind flashed, and he immediately remembered the middle-aged police officer named George in the restroom. And the officer also had a daughter. A police officer named George with a daughter. It matched Gwen's father perfectly. So, was that police officer George Stacy? Gwen came to buy something for him and ran into him. Seeing Su Luo spraying cobwebs and flying away, Gwen widened her eyes. "This is Spider-Man." As soon as Gwen arrived at the police station, her spider telepathy was activated. But it wasn't a warning of danger. It was a strange perception, an inexplicable feeling. Immediately, she saw a masked figure leaping out of the 5th floor of the police station. so she quickly took off her coat and rushed towards Ghost Spider. Unexpectedly, the opponent sprayed cobwebs, shooting out forcefully, so she instantly understood that the strange sensation was a special perception of spider ability users. There were 2 spider ability users in the entire city. One was her, and the other was the recently emerged Spider-Man. Gwen quickly shot out cobwebs, flying towards Su Luo. In an instant, the 2 landed on top of a building across from each other. Gwen ran towards Su Luo in front, shooting cobwebs and saying, "Spider-Man, why did you infiltrate the police station?" Facing the cobwebs coming at him, Su Luo's spider telepathy activated, allowing him to easily dodge the attack. At this moment, Gwen also rushed up, trying to catch Su Luo. Su Luo leaped back and covered his eyes. Gwen quickly blocked with both hands. Bang! A powerful force instantly acted on Gwen, causing her to fly backward and directly out of the high-rise building. Turning into an arc, she fell towards the ground. Gwen quickly shot out cobwebs, stabilizing herself on the wall. Immediately, she shot cobwebs towards the rooftop, leaping up and returning to the top of the building. But there was no trace of the other person at all. Gwen shook her arms, feeling numb and sore. Why is the opponent's strength so powerful, far surpassing mine? Is this Spider-Man's true strength? A hint of fear flashed in Gwen's eyes. Then Gwen looked towards the police station. She furrowed her brows slightly. Why did Spider-Man infiltrate the police station? Is he looking for someone or something? She returned to the woods and put on her coat, walking towards the entrance of the police station. The middle-aged man who was talking in the restroom stood at the entrance of the police station. Seeing Gwen, he quickly asked, "How did you come from over there?" Gwen smiled mischievously. "I just saw a little cat, so I went over to pet it." She immediately handed the food to her father. "Here, your favorite cheeseburger, Iron Man style." George smiled when he saw this. Gwen then talked to her father for a while. She subtly mentioned the power outage on the 5th floor. She instantly thought of Spider-Man running out from the 5th floor. Gwen said, "There was a power outage. Nothing happened, right?" George shook his head. Nothing happened. He wondered, "I don't know why the circuit breaker suddenly tripped. It's been a long time since we've encountered something like this." Gwen heard this. She was puzzled. What did this Spider-Man do? Although Gwen didn't know what the other person did, she was certain that with such elaborate preparations, power outages, and infiltration, the other person must have done something. On the other side, Su Luo was swinging through the city. Next, let's go and see that driver. Coincidentally, the address on the file is nearby. I wonder if he still lives in the same place as before. Immediately, Su Luo ran towards the location recorded in the file. Not long after, he arrived in front of an old single-family house. He jumped onto the house, opened a window, and went in. He listened to the breathing in the entire room. Incredibly even. Everyone was asleep. In the whole room, there were only 2 sets of breathing. He looked at the photos in the living room. His eyebrows slightly furrowed. There were many photos of the homeowners in the living room, but they were all of 2 young people and didn't resemble the driver at all. Following the breathing, he entered a bedroom. He saw the owners of the house, indeed a couple in their 30s. He quickly left the house and murmured, "It seems that the driver has already left here." He took out his phone and hacked into the police system again. He began searching for information about the driver. Soon, the result made Su Luo furrow his brows again. The driver was already dead. It happened a month after Daredevil went blind due to a heart attack. He checked the driver's company, which was a local fleet. Besides that, the driver had a wife and a son. The wife was still in the local area, while the son had gone to work in Seattle. Dead, Su Luo furrowed his brows tightly. There's probably more to it than meets the eye. Su Luo felt that this artificial radioactive chemical substance on the 7th had some secrets. The driver's death should not be simply a natural death. Su Luo murmured, "Tomorrow, let Kurt check the driver's fleet and where his wife is. Hopefully, we can find more clues." Su Luo didn't continue investigating, because there wasn't much useful information for ordinary people without a criminal record in the police system. Besides, it was late. He should go back and rest. After all, there was training the next day. If he didn't rest well, the training effect would be greatly reduced. Immediately, Su Luo went back to sleep. On the other side, inside the military base, On an open space, General Ross was walking with several researchers. General Ross spoke. Next, is it time to further strengthen this guy? The researchers nodded. Yes, we found that Carl can still undergo further strengthening to enhance his ability to further increase his strength and defense. The other person paused. The previous experiment was not perfect or complete, so his ability is still somewhat defective. The physical strength is completely fixed with no possibility of improvement, and the upper limit is locked. Most importantly, in the long run, his life will be consumed, eventually leading to death. Only by conducting a more complete experiment can his ability become complete, and only then can he obtain a more perfect nature, unlocking the sealed upper limit. Only with the most naturally complete ability can there be further evolution of the ability, and only then can he reach higher levels. The person continued. Moreover, only with this complete ability can we correctly analyze it. Otherwise, we won't be able to extract what we need, and we won't know the secrets of his ability. Upon hearing the researcher's words, General Ross nodded slightly. All right, let's do it this way. But immediately, General Ross furrowed his brows slightly. If we strengthen Carl, wouldn't he become even more powerful? Even beyond our expectations, making him uncontrollable. Who knows? He might escape again. Researcher pursed his lips. You make a valid point. If we further strengthen him, his strength will likely experience a significant leap. At that time, ordinary means may not be enough to comfort him. The laboratory is filled with researchers and various equipment, chemical agents. If we use ultrasound, it will cause huge amounts of casualties and loss of important data. If that's the case, it will be troublesome. In an instant, everyone fell silent. After a while, General Ross said, "Leave this matter to me. I will bring hatred over to control the situation." The researcher's mouth twitched. General, bringing hatred over. Are you sure it won't make the situation worse? General Ross took a deep breath. Currently, this is the only way. Besides hatred, no one else will help us with these human experiments. I will persuade hatred. The researcher reluctantly nodded. All right then. Let's go. We will further perfect this strengthening experiment. General Ross nodded. The next morning, Su Luo woke up and instantly regained his energy. His whole person was full of vitality. At this moment, whoosh, a small black figure quickly darted into Su Luo's room. Immediately, like a nail, it stood steadily on the table, staring at Su Luo with great spirit. It seemed eager for the upcoming training. Su Luo looked at the little Spider-Man who rushed up so quickly, his expression solemn, and nodded, very proactive, very good. The little Spider-Man, upon hearing this, excitedly wiggled its butt, its big eyes shining brightly. Su Luo spoke, I'll freshen up, wait for me. We'll go for training later. Today is the day I challenge 24 tons. I will awaken the power of thunder. Speaking of this, Su Luo nodded in satisfaction. The efforts during this period were not in vain. The little Spider-Man, upon hearing this, showed a happy gleam in its two eyes. It raised its two front legs high, cheering and celebrating for Su Luo. A faint, gradually rising sound came from its mouth. Well, like a cheering Hagrid, Su Luo sent a message to Kurt, asking him to investigate the driver's team and wife. Then, he leaped out of bed and rushed into the private bathroom. Soon, he finished freshening up and went downstairs directly. When he went downstairs, he saw a dejected little E. Under the coercion of his father, he was studying and listening to lessons. When he saw Su Luo, Claude spoke, Are you going out? Su Luo nodded, Yes, I'm going out to exercise. Little E saw the little Spider-Man on Su Luo's chest and quickly raised his hand to greet. Hi. Good morning, little Spider-Man. From Su Luo's front pocket, a small head popped out, its eyes shining brightly. It extended a tiny front leg like a beckoning cat and waved a greeting to little E. Then it fell back into Su Luo's pocket, like a mole in a hole. Su Luo immediately left with the little Spider-Man. Soon, Su Luo arrived at the company. Kurt came to greet him. Boss, I've already started inquiring. When you come out at noon, you should have the information. Su Luo nodded slightly. and then walked towards the training room. Inside the spacious training room, Su Luo stood in front of the massive training equipment. He murmured, "Now that I weigh 23 tons, I can already feel the power of thunder and lightning deep within my cells. But I still can't control them. These powers of lightning are still a little inactive. I'm just one step away from being able to control them. Once I reach 24 tons, I'll be able to control these powers." He took a deep breath, put on the electric shock device, and walked towards the training equipment. He began his new day of overloaded training. Boom, boom, boom. Su Luo lifted the incredibly heavy equipment as if he were lifting a mountain. Little Spider-Man, who was nearby, saw Su Luo's efforts. He quickly tied a red rope of struggle around himself. He tightly held onto it and tied it around his head. His eyes also showed a determined and resolute gaze of hard work. The entire spider's demeanor instantly became motivated and passionate. It also walked towards the training equipment, clenched its cheeks, and began to exercise diligently. Inside the training room, a large and small figure were both training hard. As they trained constantly, a large amount of sweat poured out from their bodies. Queens, New York, LaGuardia Airport. A plane landed. A tall and enchanting woman with emerald green hair and sunglasses got off the plane. She looked at New York and murmured, "Su Luo, I'm here." Several subordinates quickly approached her. They carried her bag and clothes for HYDRA. HYDRA's lady asked, "Is there any news about him?" The subordinate replied, "Not yet. But as long as he's still in New York, we'll find him soon." Hearing this, Madame Viper nodded. Inside Osborn's training room, Su Luo trained hard. Under the pressure of the massive weight, his veins bulged. Sweat poured out freely, soaking his clothes completely, as if they were soaked in water. As he reached the end, he almost had no strength left in his body. His body seemed completely exhausted, almost unable to muster any strength, feeling extremely uncomfortable. That state of being completely depleted and unable to continue, the excruciating willpower was like ants devouring the last bit of willpower. Su Luo clenched his teeth. Just a few more, hold on. He exerted all his strength and did the last few movements. Immediately, he became completely powerless, lying on the ground, his chest heaving violently, sweat pouring down like rain. He could feel his muscle fibers constantly tearing, constantly being strengthened. His cells were constantly becoming stronger. At the same time, the activity of the special bioelectricity within the cells was also constantly increasing, becoming more and more intense, becoming more and more active. Finally, it reached a critical point. Immediately, the critical point was broken through. The special bioelectricity within his body instantly seemed to awaken. A qualitative change occurred. Powerful activity filled the special bioelectricity, flowing within Su Luo's body like an awakened dragon. It allowed Su Luo to clearly feel this new power within his body. At the same time, at this moment, this power completely gave Su Luo a feeling of being able to control his arms and fingers freely. Su Luo looked excitedly at his own hands and said, "Electricity, come. 082 50,000 volts. You have offended so many powerful forces." Immediately, an electric current surged out from deep within Su Luo's body, flowing towards his hands like running water. In the next moment, arcs of electricity burst out from Su Luo's hands. Crackling sounds, incredibly bright, with an intense heat. Looking at the continuously exploding arcs of electricity in his hands, Su Luo's face revealed a smile. "I finally summoned it." He clenched his fist, and the arcs of electricity in his hands instantly disappeared. Su Luo gasped for breath, his eyes filled with joy. Beside him, little Spider-Man lay panting, its eyes also filled with happiness. It weakly let out a joyful sound. Su Luo extended his fist. Little Spider-Man also trembled as it raised one of its front legs, touching Su Luo's fist with its own. A fist bump to celebrate. Next, we just need to recover a bit, then we can test it. After a while, Su Luo and little Spider-Man recovered somewhat. After replenishing their nutrients, they arrived at the testing room. Su Luo faced the conductive device in front of him and reached out his hand. He directly activated the electric current within his body. The powerful electric current surged out like a river, gathering in the palm of his hand. In the next moment, a burst of electric current shot out like a beam of light towards the conductive device in front. Soon after, the voltage strength of the electric current appeared on the screen beside it. 50,000 volts. Seeing this, Su Luo nodded in satisfaction. He felt the capacity of the electric current within his body. The special bioelectricity in his body was currently only enough for him to use the electric current attack a few times. Once it was used up, the special bioelectricity within his body would be depleted, and it would slowly recover. To expand the capacity of the electric energy, he needed to continue to strengthen himself and increase the strength of his cells. As the cells became stronger, they would be able to generate more electric energy. Now, I also have an energy attack method. In the future, electric shocks can also be used as a finishing move. Just at that moment, the sound of a text message on Su Luo's phone rang. Su Luo opened his phone, and Kurt sent him the address of the driver's convoy and his wife. Seeing this, Su Luo took little Spider-Man and went to find the convoy and his wife. Somewhere in New York, a few people stood. Somebody is asking about the radioactive chemical substance number 7. It seems like they also asked about the driver from many years ago. I didn't expect that someone would dig up old accounts from many years ago. Maybe they found some clues. Find him and take care of him. All right. Before long, Su Luo found the convoy. He asked if the driver had transported goods for any company or individual before he died. The convoy said they couldn't remember because it was many years ago. Su Luo ultimately didn't obtain any useful information from the convoy. He immediately went to look for the driver's wife. Inside an apartment, a woman in her 50s opened the door. It was the driver's wife. Seeing Su Luo, the driver's wife asked in confusion, "Who are you?" Su Luo got straight to the point. "A friend of mine was injured because of the materials your husband was transporting. I came to find out what materials your husband was transporting at that time." Upon hearing that a friend of the victim had come to visit, the driver's wife immediately showed a nervous expression. "Definitely, don't worry, there won't be any compensation involved, because the matter was settled privately." Upon hearing this, the tension on the other person's face eased slightly. She quickly said, "Come in, let me pour you some water." Su Luo entered immediately. Su Luo got straight to the point. "Do you know that the materials your husband was transporting caused a child to go blind a month before his death?" The driver's wife sighed and nodded. "No one expected that the materials in that truck would directly cause blindness. That was my husband's first accident while driving. But luckily, the insurance company provided compensation and treated the child's illness." Su Luo continued, "Do you know who the materials in that truck were being transported for?" The driver's wife bit her lips slightly. It was for a shell company that had already been dissolved. Su Luo's heart stirred. "How do you know it was a shell company?" The driver's wife said, "After the accident, my husband passed away a month later. They said it was due to a myocardial infarction. My husband never had any heart problems. How could he suddenly die of a heart attack? I feel that there must be something suspicious here. Most importantly, since the truck accident, my husband has been restless and his behavior has become strange." She clenched her pants, and then not long after, he was gone. "So, I suspect that his death is related to that accident and the company behind it. So, I specifically investigated that company and found out it was a shell company, and the people from the company had long since disappeared. And even the company itself has been dissolved. I haven't found any more clues since then." The driver's wife sighed at this point. Upon hearing this, Su Luo furrowed his brows slightly. It seemed that he couldn't get the information he wanted to hear either. With that, the lead was cut off. Su Luo couldn't help but ask, "Before your husband died, did he mention anything strange? What exactly was wrong with him?" The driver's wife pondered for a moment. "He was restless every day." "Oh, I remember his restlessness didn't seem to start after the accident. But on the day of the accident, early in the morning, he seemed a bit restless. I brought him a glass of milk, but he took it empty-handed. Now that I think about it, it was probably after his restlessness that the accident happened. After the accident, he came back and was still muttering to himself about a big bridge and a poplar tree. Upon hearing this, Su Luo furrowed his brows slightly. A big bridge? Poplar tree? Suddenly, a flash of inspiration came to him, and the images from the accident scene in Daredevil's file came to mind. The place where Daredevil had the accident was in front of a stone bridge, and just below the stone bridge on a slight slope, there was a poplar tree. So, there must be something under that poplar tree. Otherwise, the driver wouldn't keep mentioning it. Thinking of this, Su Luo's heart stirred. He said to the driver's wife, "If you remember any useful information, you can give me a call." After saying that, Su Luo wrote down a phone number for her. The driver's wife nodded. Su Luo left the driver's wife's home. He got in his car and stepped on the gas pedal. The car immediately sped away. He drove towards the stone bridge in his car. He wanted to see what was under the poplar tree. According to the driver's wife, the driver was restless, which led to the accident. It seems that the driver must have encountered something before the car accident. It is estimated to be related to the radioactive chemical substance number 7. He probably discovered something related to radioactive chemical substance number 7, and it was something bad, which is why he was so restless. He turned the steering wheel and made a turn. However, after so many years, I don't know if there's still something under that poplar tree, or if the poplar tree is still there. After all, so many years have passed. Su Luo drove down a street and soon arrived at the stone bridge where the accident happened. He could see a large poplar tree standing on the slope next to the stone bridge. It was the same large poplar tree in the crime scene photos. Seeing that the tree was still there, Su Luo felt a slight relief. But he didn't stop the car. After all, it was broad daylight, and it would be too easy to attract attention if he started digging by the bridge. He didn't want a crowd to gather when he was digging. He decided to come back later, so he drove past the stone bridge and continued driving. Just at that moment, Su Luo furrowed his brows slightly and glanced at the side mirror. He found that a car was following him. Who is following me? Have I recently offended someone? HYDRA? Essex? Or some other mess? Su Luo continued driving and took the car to a secluded place, then stopped. The car behind also followed and stopped behind him. Under that car, an electromagnetic pulse button was activated. Suddenly, all the electronic devices in the surroundings were disabled. A male voice came from the car behind. "I didn't expect you to discover us. Your anti-surveillance ability is quite strong. Do you want to have a good talk with us by bringing us to such a remote place?" The doors of both cars opened. One person got out of Su Luo's car. Several men got out of the car behind. Su Luo calmly looked at them. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" The leader of the men smiled. "What have you been doing recently? Have you offended someone? Don't you have any idea?" Su Luo frowned. "Have I offended someone? So you guys are from the military?" Upon hearing this, the man on the other side raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you have offended the military? Not the military? So it's HYDRA." The man's gaze turned cold. "You have offended HYDRA too? You have offended so many," Su Luo said. "And also the Essex group?" The men looked at the sunglasses-wearing man in front of them with a strange expression. One of the slightly chubby men took a deep breath. "Damn, offending so many powerful forces and still alive." Su Luo frowned. "Are none of them? It's too troublesome to guess. Just confess yourselves." The slightly chubby man looked at Su Luo warily and said to his boss, "If this guy is telling the truth, then he must have something. Offending so many and still alive. That would be quite impressive." The boss narrowed his eyes slightly. "This kid might be playing mind games with us, trying to make us retreat without a fight." Before the boss finished speaking, bang, 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 Su Luo swiftly drew his gun and shot at lightning speed. Except for the boss, the rest of the men were instantly shot in the head. Dealing with these men in front of him, Su Luo didn't need to lift a finger. Just a few shots were enough. The boss's words came to an abrupt end, and he stiffly turned his head to look to the side. "I saw my companions getting shot in the forehead one after another." Immediately, there was a loud bang as they fell to the ground. The leader's eyes were filled with fear. The opponent's speed was too fast, and their accuracy was too precise, hitting them in the head. Facing such a person, he had no room for resistance. Su Luo spoke. "Tell me, who are you guys?" The leader licked his dry lips and said, We are security personnel from a certain company. We specialize in handling dirty work for the company, things that can't be seen. Our mission is to eliminate those who know about the artificial radioactive chemical substance, number 7, or those who are investigating it. You have been investigating these things recently, so we targeted you. So we are prepared to eliminate you. Su Luo didn't expect that the other party would be related to chemical substance number 7. And he didn't expect that just by investigating something related, he would be targeted for elimination. It seemed that this company had something to hide, either doing something unspeakable or having some undisclosed secret. He asked, "What is your company?" The other party replied, "Our company was dissolved many years ago. It's gone." Su Luo looked at the other party intently. "Are you kidding me? The company has long been gone. Yet you are still working?" The other party hurriedly said, "It's true. But after the company was dissolved, the person in charge gave us a considerable amount of money to take care of the aftermath, to eliminate those who know about this matter. Then they disappeared, but we know that the company must have had a lot of power behind it, because in order to conduct experiments with chemical substance number 7, they recruited many people, either resulting in death or disability. To be able to find so many people for human experiments, you can imagine their strength. And then they disappeared all at once. So we took the money and have been handling these things ever since." Su Luo asked, "What's the deal with the driver?" The other party said the driver discovered that the company was using chemical substance number 7 for experiments, causing many people to die tragically. So the next day, because of his uneasiness, he got into a car accident. And later, he even wanted to report it to the police. So we silenced him and created the illusion of a heart attack. Su Luo continued, "What exactly is chemical substance number 7? The other party said, "It's an artificially manufactured radioactive chemical substance. The company wanted to induce mutations in the human body to obtain greater power. But it failed. That's why the company decided to shut down." Upon hearing this, Su Luo said, "I thought the company shutting down was related to the driver's death." The other party replied, "It's also related. It accelerated the company's closure. Chemical substance number 7 had been failing, and the company had already planned to shut down. The driver's car accident and death could attract attention from the outside world and potentially expose everything. Plus, chemical substance number 7 had almost no value anymore. So it was quickly shut down." Su Luo thought of the willow tree and asked, "By the way, did the driver take something?" The other party was taken aback. "What do you mean? Did he steal something?" Judging from the other party's reaction, it seemed that he couldn't extract any relevant information. So he said, "Do you have any useful information that can save your life?" If not, he raised his gun again. The other party quickly begged for mercy. Su Luo saw that there was no more information to be gained. He shot the other party directly, then cleaned up the scene a bit and drove away. "So what kind of company is behind this chemical substance number 7? Su Luo murmured. Su Luo planned to investigate secretly later. But for now, he would go and see what was under that willow tree. Soon night fell. Su Luo drove to the stone bridge, took a shovel, and went down the slope to the willow tree. Taking advantage of the darkness and no one around, he started digging. He was very efficient. Soon he dug up something hard. Dig deeper. Suddenly, a blue light lit up. Su Luo's gaze froze. "This is 083 successful re-engraving. Super strong tympanic membrane auditory organ generation." In front of Su Luo was a container with arms as thick as a forearm. Inside the container was a substance emitting a blue light. On the top of the container, there was a string of words. "Artificial radioactive chemical substance number 7. Seeing this, Su Luo's breath hitched, and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect the driver to have buried this thing. In fact, Su Luo had already vaguely guessed that the driver had buried the number 7 chemical substance. After all, something that the driver could hide and not let his wife know about most likely had to be a dangerous chemical substance. Based on the information he currently had, Su Luo made a bold speculation. After learning the truth about the number 7 chemical substance, the driver felt fear and was tormented by guilt. He feared the terror of the company and felt guilty because his company was transporting such harmful things. It was also because of his conscience that the driver had the idea of reporting it. But he hesitated. On the second day of learning the truth, due to being absent-minded, an accident occurred, and even a child's eyes were destroyed. At this point, the driver had the idea of reporting it, but he had concerns. So, taking advantage of the destruction and spillage of some chemical substances this time, he secretly hid a portion of the chemical agent under a nearby poplar tree to leave evidence for future reporting. But before he could report it, he was dealt with by security personnel. Su Luo looked at the No. 7 chemical substance in front of him and said, "I thought I wouldn't find it for a while." But unexpectedly, the driver still hid a portion. With this thing, I can finally replicate the super hearing. Thinking of this, a hint of joy appeared in Su Luo's eyes. A small head popped out his chest, looking at Su Luo's happy expression. The little thing also showed a happy expression and clapped its hands cheerfully. Then it dug into the surrounding air for a while and placed itself on both sides of its head. It looked happily at Su Luo. Su Luo understood the little Spider-Man's special gesture, which meant that it could hear the sounds all around and obtain super hearing. Su Luo nodded. "Yes, I can hear the sounds all around." At this moment, a rumbling sound came from the sky. Su Luo glanced at the sky and murmured, "Is it going to thunder and rain again? I have to hurry back." He picked up the number 7 chemical substance and quickly threw the surrounding soil into the pit. After doing all this, he was going to take the number 7 chemical substance to the laboratory. Now, he had to go back and study how Daredevil gained his super hearing ability, replicate it, and make it his own ability. He immediately picked up the number 7 chemical substance and got into the car, heading towards the laboratory. At the same time, he sent a message to Daredevil, asking him to come over quickly. On the way back, a message came in. "Boss, the lizard optimization serum is complete. We have already made 10 doses. Do you need it? If you do, I'll bring it to you." Seeing this message, Su Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Finally, this thing has been made. This is a life-saving elixir. He immediately sent a message to Kurt. "Bring 4 doses of the serum to the secret laboratory." Apart from wanting to keep some as a backup, he also needed to prepare 1 dose for Nightcrawler. After all, he had promised to help the other restore his vision. Kurt immediately replied to the message. "Okay, I'll come right away." Bang, bang, bang. Daredevil was fighting a group of gangsters. In a narrow alley, Daredevil fought with the physical abilities of an ordinary person. Even though his fighting skills were extremely high, he was still immortal, the peak of an ordinary person. If the fight lasted too long, he would become tired and his movements would slow down. As a result, the enemy's fists and knives kept landing on him. After defeating more than a dozen gangsters, Daredevil's whole body was covered in wounds, panting heavily. Feeling the pain in his body, Daredevil took a shallow breath and gritted his teeth slightly. "It hurts." Just at that moment, his phone vibrated. Daredevil took it out and saw that Su Luo had asked him to go to the laboratory. Upon seeing this, Daredevil stopped gritting his teeth and fell silent in an instant. He suddenly felt that the pain in his body was nothing compared to going to the laboratory. He would rather be beaten up by a villain than go to the laboratory, because the pain in the laboratory far exceeded being stabbed or punched by a villain. Rumble. A deep sound came from above. Daredevil sighed. "What kind of weather is this?" He hung his head in frustration and finally hailed a cab to go to the laboratory. Osborne Corporation, in front of a certain floor's circuit breaker door. A man was fixing the wires inside. Standing next to him was a man in a suit with a sharp face. He spoke. "Max, the company hired you to work, not to freeload. You don't take care of the wiring on this floor properly. Don't you check it seriously? Don't you know how much damage it would cause if there was a sudden power outage while everyone in the company is working? Do you not want this job anymore?" Max said with grievance. "I did check it seriously, but sometimes it just malfunctions and no one could stop it. After all, accidents happen no matter what it is. I can't guarantee that it won't have problems." Hearing Max's retort, the man in the suit became even angrier. His voice became sharper. "Are you saying that I wrongly accused you? Are you blaming me? The company hired you to solve problems, not to blame others and shirk responsibility. If you don't want to do it, get the hell out. If you don't want to do it, there are plenty of people who do. Hearing the other person's words, Max quickly lowered his head, not daring to respond, and could only continue repairing the wires. Do it quickly. If you can't finish, get lost tomorrow. After saying that, the man in the suit left angrily. Max hurriedly sped up his work, repairing the wires. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from outside the building. In theory, Max should have stopped at this point to avoid danger. But he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to finish the work tonight and would be fired tomorrow. He had worked hard to find this job, and now Osborne Corporation was doing better and better, so he didn't want to lose this decent job. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's not thundering yet. I'll finish the repair quickly, and then it'll be fine." He hastened his actions. Su Luo entered the laboratory. Kurt had been waiting for Su Luo inside. Seeing Su Luo, he quickly walked up. At the moment, Kurt still had his severed arm, and he hadn't taken the potion yet. Although Su Luo had promised to give him a bottle, he didn't directly take it and use it. He still needed to hand over the item to the boss first and let the boss give it to him. It was a necessary procedure. In Kurt's view, things had to be handed over to the boss first and then allocated by the boss. Only when he was assigned to it did he have the qualification to use it. He handed a small black box to Su Luo. Su Luo took the box and opened it. Inside were 4 special test tubes. Inside the test tubes was a crimson liquid, thick like blood. Su Luo immediately handed one of the optimized potions to Kurt. "Take it to heal your arm." Seeing the potion in Su Luo's hand, Kurt trembled all over. With trembling hands, he took the vial of medicine and said, Thank you, boss." Looking at the vial in his hand, Kurt felt incredibly excited. Finally he could restore his arm. He could finally become a normal person. After so many years of hope, it was finally going to be realized today. He pressed the end of the special vial. Instantly, a needle emerged from the other end. He stabbed it directly into his arm. Sizzle. The medicine in the test tube was automatically injected into Kurt's body. Immediately after, Kurt felt a powerful vitality surging through his whole body. Immediately after, he felt an intense itchiness at the sight of his severed arm. Immediately after, countless flesh buds sprouted and grew wildly outward. The sight was enough to make one's scalp tingle. It was like the arrival of Cthulhu, making one's sanity plummet. Those flesh buds intertwined and healed together. A segment of an arm kept growing outward. Soon, a complete arm appeared. Looking at the arm in front of him, Kurt couldn't help but feel that it was unreal. Is this my hand? He squeezed his new hand, feeling its texture and grip strength. Kurt suddenly felt an overwhelming joy in his heart. I finally grew my own new hand. He quickly looked at Su Luo and bowed respectfully, saying, "Thank you, boss. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have what I have today, nor would I have this brand new hand. Thank you." Su Luo patted his shoulder and said, "All right, it's late. Go rest. You've been busy these past few days. Go on. Go back and surprise your wife." Kurt nodded. Then he happily walked outside. Good news to share with his wife. Su Luo closed the box and put it aside. He took the vial of chemical substance number 7 and brought it into a sealed research room, mainly to isolate the radiation from it. The container of chemical substance number 7 has an isolating effect. But if experiments are to be conducted, it needs to be taken out. It will create radiation in the surroundings. After all, this is a radioactive chemical substance with radiation. If the radiation is high, exposure to 650 radians will result in 100% death. If the radiation is below 400 radians, 5% of those exposed will die. With a lower dose of radiation, below 150 radians, the death rate is 0, but does not mean there is no damage. Often symptoms will appear after 20 years. Radiation can also damage genetic material in dose units, mainly causing gene mutations and chromosomal abnormalities, affecting one or even several generations. In order to conduct the experiment, Su Luo needs to place it in an isolation chamber. After the experiment is completed, Su Luo will use special devices in the isolation chamber to eliminate the radiation. Definitely, Daredevil and the driver were exposed to radiation and did not die. indicating that the radiation was not very strong, but it will still have an impact. At this moment, Daredevil also arrived. Suluo said, "Let's start our experiment. You wait for me on the operating table. I'll finish my work first." Daredevil nodded and quietly lay on the operating table. Little Spider-Man crawled onto a table, his little head drooping, his eyes fixed on Suluo. Suluo put on a radiation protective suit and entered the isolation chamber. He took out chemical substance number 7 and placed it in a specialized instrument to begin his research. He constantly observed and conducted related radiation simulations, simulating the effects on human genes and chromosomes to see the resulting gene mutations and chromosomal abnormalities, and constantly recording relevant data, constantly conducting relevant simulations based on new data. After the radiation of substance No. 7, the 34th gene undergoes changes in the composition and arrangement of base pairs. The specific changes are as follows. In the 145th gene, adenine is replaced by guanine and thymine is replaced by cytosine, resulting in a point mutation conversion. In the 234th gene, guanine is replaced by thymine, resulting in a point mutation transposition. In the 321st gene, cytosine undergoes oxidation and dehydrogenation to become uracil. Suluo constantly records the corresponding impacts and changes, observing how substance number 7 induces gene mutations. Under what dosage will it cause those changes? Under what time frame will it cause those changes? And constantly incorporating relevant data from Daredevil. Some time passes. Suluo completes the analysis and recording of substance number 7. He immediately clears the radiation in the isolation room. Then he approaches Daredevil. He begins to conduct relevant experiments on him again, as well as recording. He starts to deduce how substance number 7 affects him. In the entire laboratory, Suluo is constantly busy by himself. His movements are extremely agile, sometimes even appearing as afterimages, as if he has multiple hands. Suluo is completely focused, doing his experiments with extreme seriousness. His mental capacity is pushed to the limit, operating frantically, consuming a large amount of his energy. As time constantly passes, Suluo's experimental data on replicating Daredevil's abilities also constantly increases, continuously filling in the gaps. Suluo constantly reconstructs the entire scientific process of how Daredevil obtained his abilities. It's like constantly collecting puzzle pieces with more and more consecutive images, about to form a complete picture. Sweat starts to appear on Suluo's forehead. Finally, after who knows how long, Suluo puts down the instrument in his hand and finishes typing the last keystroke. The computer starts to perform simulations. Countless data flies across the screen, continuously displaying passing green. Finally, the data finishes flying. A window pops up. Simulation successful. Successful replication of the creation of the super ability. Seeing this, Suluo clenches his fist, a burst of joy erupting in his eyes. "We did it," Suluo excitedly says. "Next, I will replicate the super hearing onto myself." He quickly starts to act. Beginning the experiment replication, he strictly controls every step, accurately reproducing each process. Replication constantly progresses. The little Spider-Man next to him stands up nervously, staring intently at Suluo in the isolation room, its two front legs gripping tightly like a human. There's even a drop of sweat sliding down the little Spider-Man's head due to nervousness. Soon, Suluo completes the final step, completing all the replications. Then, Suluo starts to feel changes in his body, changes in his ears. Internal structures are changing, evolving. A brand new eardrum auditory organ is growing. The birth of super hearing is imminent. At the same time, outside the laboratory, after a dull rumbling sound, a loud, thunderous boom, a massive lightning strikes the Osborn building. 084, the Electric Man, is born. Suluo's super hearing. After a low rumbling sound, the dark clouds in the sky finally gathered enough power and finally erupted. Boom! A thick thunderbolt struck. towards New York, illuminating the entire city of New York, directly hitting Osborn's building. Inside Osborn's building, the people who were still on duty or working overtime felt their ears ringing and their heads buzzing after the deafening sound. The violent electric current rushed into various electrical devices along the building's power lines or signal cables. These electric currents directly rushed into the circuit breaker of a certain floor, precisely the place where Max was repairing. Crackling. In an instant, sparks and lightning flashed in many places inside the circuit breaker, extremely dangerous. Max, who had just finished repairing the circuit, was startled by this sudden scene and quickly took a few steps back. Immediately, he looked at this scene with a dazed and desperate expression. The circuit that had just been repaired was completely ruined, and it couldn't be repaired in a short period of time. In the end, thunder and lightning started outside, making it completely unsuitable for repair work. Repairing it again would be suicidal. But if the circuit wasn't fixed, he would definitely be fired by his supervisor. In other words, he would soon be out of a job that he had worked so hard to get. Max grabbed his hair, feeling a bit overwhelmed. I just fixed everything. And now, because of a thunderstorm, everything is destroyed. Why am I so unlucky? I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm going to be fired. Max looked at the circuit breaker in front of him in despair. Some parts of the circuit were completely damaged, and some areas on this floor had lost power completely. At this moment, the man in a suit walked over again. Looking at the completely broken circuit, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Damn it! Completely ruined. You're fired. Get the hell out of here. You useless piece of crap. FK, you can't do anything right. You worthless piece of shit." Max lowered his voice and became somewhat calm. "It's not my fault. It's an accident caused by lightning. This is not my problem. I'm not at fault." The man in a suit glared at Max angrily. "You dare talk back? What kind of useless piece of shit are you? What's your status compared to mine? Get lost. Get out of Osborn immediately. There's no place for you here. If you don't leave immediately, I'll have the security throw you out. Garbage doesn't deserve to stay at Osborn." Hearing the other party's words, Max suddenly looked up, his face twisted, his eyes bloodshot. "What's my status? What's your position? What are you? What position do you have? You high and mighty people deserve to die. You use your status and power to exploit us low-level people, enslaving and whipping us. You don't understand anything. When something goes wrong, you make us take the blame. Do you know right from wrong? Do you have a conscience? Do you know that when people are angry, they can do anything? When people are pushed to the limit, they become demons." He suddenly grabbed the man in a suit and pushed him onto the sparking circuit. The man in a suit screamed in fear. He quickly grabbed Max's clothes, and Max also fell onto the circuit. Max saw this scene and widened his eyes in horror. No. The man in a suit landed on the wires. Boom. The violent electric current rushed into the man in a suit's body, raging wildly, as if countless knives were cutting through his body. A scorching sensation burned the man in the suit from the inside out. The area of skin, muscles, blood vessels, and bones that came into contact with the electric current suffered deep burns and necrosis. Cracking sounds rang out, causing the muscles throughout his body to contract forcefully, resulting in multiple fractures. Heart and respiratory irregularities began to occur, followed by damage to the nervous system, cerebral hemorrhage, cerebral edema, and organ damage including intestinal perforation, bladder necrosis, lung contusion, hemothorax, kidney damage, and so on. It was like the ultimate punishment. The man in the suit was filled with extreme pain. A howl erupted. At the same time, the electric current also passed through the man in the suit and reached Max. The violent electric current flowed into Max's body like a river made of countless shards of glass. It seemed as if countless shards of glass were flowing through his body, leaving countless scars inside him. The extreme pain struck Max's nerves. He let out a similarly horrifying scream. Soon after, the man in the suit turned into charcoal. While Max screamed in agony, his injuries were not very severe. On the contrary, there was a constant flow of electric current in his body, and his skin was glowing faintly, giving him a somewhat mystical appearance. And as the electric current constantly poured into his body, the electric light inside his skin became brighter and his overall condition improved. The injuries caused by the electricity earlier were slowly healing. The pain also diminished. After a moment, bang! The man in the suit fell to the ground. Max also stopped absorbing the electric current and stood inside the electrical switch, his whole body emitting a faint blue light. Arcs of electricity jumped out of his body, as if elves were leaping on his skin. Max looked at his own transformation in astonishment. This is feeling the unprecedented power within him. Max quickly smiled. I have a super ability now. I have become a powerful super ability user. This is really amazing. It feels so good. My life has finally turned around. I am no longer a nobody. Because I have this powerful strength, I am now a strong person. Max walked out of the electrical switch, looked around, looked at the building, and his eyes were filled with resentment. He carried his grudge against the man in the suit and also directed it towards Osborn, hating both the house and the crow. He gritted his teeth and said, "This damn place. It should be destroyed." He immediately raised his hand. Several electric currents blasted out. Boom, boom. Trash cans in the hallway. The front door was blasted open. Even the walls had a big hole blown through them. Suddenly, cries of surprise and screams rang out. People who were still working on this floor were scared and fled, not wanting to be attacked. Some people also felt that Max looked very serious. Isn't that the electrician from our floor? How did he become like this? He always seemed so honest, but I never expected him to have this side. Having power means destroying everything at will. Damn it. Run away quickly. I don't want to be hit by him. Damn it. Why is this happening in our company? We're done for. The company is going to suffer huge amounts of losses. This guy will destroy everything. Max saw people scattering and escaping, and he laughed triumphantly. Run, run. Be afraid. You should be afraid of me. He constantly shot out electric currents. Desks, chairs, computers, and everything in the office were blasted to pieces. Max looked at his own power and immediately said, Osborn Corporation is so rich. If I can rob them, I'll be rich. Yes, I should rob Osborn Corporation's money. I am now a strong person, and everything is under my control. With this in mind, he quickly rushed towards the finance department. At this moment, the security personnel finally arrived, raising their firearms. Don't move. Otherwise, we will shoot. Stop immediately. Please stop your actions immediately. Seeing this, Max sneered, You bunch of losers. You think you can stop me? He immediately released several electric currents, instantly knocking down several security personnel. After doing this, he continued to rush towards the finance office. In one of Osborn's meeting rooms, Norman was still working overtime with his subordinates, studying the various details of the upcoming product launch. Finally, after careful consideration, they formulated a detailed plan. After completing these tasks, Norman, with a tired body, walked out of the meeting room. He was ready to go home and get a good night's sleep. Just at this moment, a phone call came in. General Manager, something happened on the 23rd floor. Norman's eyes immediately sharpened. What happened? There's a guy covered in electricity causing havoc on the 23rd floor. He has already injured several armed security personnel. No one can stop him. Furthermore, he is heading towards the finance office. He is probably going to rob the money. Hearing this, Norman said, I understand. He immediately ran towards his office. Returning to his office, he went to the nearby wardrobe, opened it, and pressed a button, requesting flowers. Suddenly, a hidden compartment appeared behind the wardrobe. A set of Green Goblin armor appeared, which was the previous Green Goblin suit. The armor was still quite powerful, so Norman kept it for emergencies. Norman quickly put on the armor, picked up the glider from it, and flew out of the window, rushing out of the building. Soon he saw Electro. Seeing this, he acted quickly. He directly broke through the glass of the building and charged towards Electro. Several flying darts were shot towards Electro. Electro looked at the flying darts and dodged them by moving to the side. He looked at Norman and asked, Who are you? Why are you trying to stop me? Norman lowered his voice. Stop your attack. Don't continue making mistakes. Hearing Norman's words, Max sneered, I hate people like you who preach. If you want to stop me, Let's see if you have the ability." After saying that, he rushed towards Norman. Immediately, with a gesture of his hands, arcs of electricity crackled in his hands. They quickly turned into two electric beams and shot towards Norman. Norman swiftly dodged, evading Electro's lightning attack, and charged towards him while pulling out a tranquilizer gun from his waist. Just as he was about to attack, Electro unleashed an even stronger electric current in his hands. Boom! It hit Norman's armor. Boom! Norman was directly knocked back, crashing into the wall and leaving a large pit. The powerful electric current instantly numbed Norman's body, followed by waves of pain. In an instant, Norman lost his fighting ability. After defeating Norman, the Electric Man's confidence soared. He laughed heartily. "I told you no one can stop me. I am invincible. Now no one can stop me," he said, then rushed towards the finance room, excitement filling his eyes. "Finally, I'm going to get rich." Others who witnessed this scene had dark expressions. "It's over. No one can stop him now. This guy is too powerful. He can control electric current and shock anyone who comes near." In the secret experiment room, Su Luo completed the replication. Changes were also happening in his ears. Soon, Su Luo's ear structure completed its evolution. In an instant, countless sounds flooded Su Luo's ears. The sound of people breathing while sleeping. The sound of the television at night. The sound of someone urinating. The sound of people talking at night. There was even the sound of someone tearing open a package and eating potato chips. An incredibly noisy stream of sound rushed into Su Luo's ears, almost breaking his eardrums and overwhelming his brain. Countless voices echoed in his mind. Waves of pain repeatedly struck his brain nerves. At that moment, he felt like his head was going to split open. Su Luo covered his head, clenched his teeth, and showed a painful expression. Drops of sweat flowed from his forehead. Su Luo knew that his head and body were adapting to this super hearing ability. Little Spider-Man, who was beside him, saw this scene and immediately showed a nervous and anxious expression. It quickly rushed to the glass, staring intently at Su Luo inside the isolation room. It made anxious whimpering sounds, seemingly asking Su Luo what was wrong and if everything was okay. Its front legs trembled nervously and anxiously, focusing on Su Luo inside. Not long after, the painful expression on Su Luo's face gradually faded. That was because his body was adapting to this super hearing ability. The intense pain disappeared. He began to distinguish those extremely noisy sounds, clearly identifying each sound within the chaotic stream. As long as he focused on a particular sound, that sound would become clear while the other sounds would weaken. Seeing the pain disappear from Su Luo's face, Little Spider-Man immediately breathed a sigh of relief, jumped off the glass, and sat on the ground. Suddenly, some chaotic sounds entered his ears. He keenly recognized a familiar voice among them. He recognized some of those voices as his employees, Osborn's employees. He even heard Norman's voice, heard Norman making a phone call. In an instant, he understood what was happening in the Osborn building. His tightly closed eyes suddenly opened. A burst of electric arcs crackled inside. Su Luo said, "The Electric Man is dead." 085, the special symbol of substance number 7. Electric Man ability is mine. Inside the military base, inside a certain laboratory, a group of researchers in white lab coats are busy. Two people are standing outside the laboratory, looking inside. One is the lab director in a white lab coat, and the other is General Ross. The director speaks. "We are preparing and will be able to start the experiment soon. Furthermore, according to our tests, Carl has a strength of 25 tons, which is about 8 times that of Captain America's 3 tons. Additionally, his defense is able to withstand attacks from ordinary blades, close-range handgun bullets, and even rifle shots from a slightly longer distance. His defense is far superior to Captain America and 99% of super ability individuals. Furthermore, the experiment has no effect on Carl's mental state and will not make him lose control. It can be said that Carl is the most successful product in our super soldier serum recovery, far surpassing Captain America. He pauses and says, according to our calculations, if the strengthening is successful, Carl's strength will double to 50 tons. In addition, his defense will further improve, even being able to withstand close-range rifle shots and have good resistance against sniper bullets. The most important thing is that Carl will continue to grow and become even stronger in the future. Upon hearing this, a hint of excitement flashes in General Ross's eyes. He nods and smiles, saying, very good, very good. You all hurry up and complete the repairs on Carl's ability as soon as possible. By then, we will be able to obtain Carl's complete ability and replicate it in more soldiers. A terrifying strength of 50 tons, combined with the ability to withstand close-range rifle shots. It's invincible. If we can use him to create a team, we will have a super army that surpasses most super ability individuals. At that time, our country will be the strongest on this planet. Speaking up to this point, General Ross clenches his fist in excitement. Then, his expression becomes solemn. If we face a battle similar to the Battle of New York or the Sokovia War in the future, we will no longer be passive and powerless. We will no longer be bystanders. We will have our own super army and be able to deal with any enemy that comes. Speaking up to this point, General Ross clenches his fist, his eyes filled with a cold and stern look. The director nods, saying, rest assured, General. Soon, we will complete Carl's ability and also research the secrets of his ability, creating a new super soldier serum. Upon hearing this, General Ross nods slightly and looks at the busy people inside the laboratory. At the same time, the defense of the entire base becomes even stricter. More soldiers are patrolling in more places. It's as if they want to turn the entire base into an impregnable fortress, not allowing even a mosquito to fly in. Su Luo comes out from the isolation room. At this moment, Daredevil has already regained consciousness. Su Luo takes out a tube of lizard-enhanced serum from a box and hands it to Daredevil. This serum will be able to heal your eyes. Daredevil takes the serum, his hand trembling slightly. It can really restore my sight? Su Luo nods. Yes, take it home and use it. Upon hearing this, Daredevil understands that Su Luo is letting him leave. He quickly nods. Thank you, then I'll go back. If you need anything, you can find me. He chuckles. I can provide pro bono legal assistance for you. After saying that, he takes a bottle of optimized serum and leaves the laboratory gracefully. Seeing Daredevil leave, Su Luo clears all the relevant data in the laboratory because everything is already recorded in his mind. He looks at the number 7 chemical substance beside him and murmurs, who exactly developed you? Besides the number 7 chemical substance, you must have researched other things too. What effect do your other chemical substances or other things have? Suddenly, his gaze becomes sharp. Looked at the top of the container. Around the black metal lid, there were 2 logos of the Earth, one on the left and one on the right. Seeing this, Su Luo raised an eyebrow slightly and asked, is this the logo of an organization or a company? With the Earth as the logo, Su Luo had no impression at all. Unable to understand, Su Luo shook his head. If he couldn't figure it out, he wouldn't think about it. Right now, he still needed to quickly deal with the troubles of the company. Su Luo immediately sent a message to Kurt, asking him to clean up this secret laboratory and find a new one. For Su Luo, a secret laboratory was a mobile laboratory. After finishing these tasks, Su Luo shot out and left the laboratory, rushing towards Osborn Corporation. In his ears, there are the crackling sounds of Electro releasing his abilities in the Osborn Corporation in the distance. Electro. Su Luo muttered this name, his eyes slightly brightening. Electro, able to enhance his own electrical power by absorbing electricity. The more electrical power he absorbs, the stronger Electro becomes. After reaching a certain level of electrical power, he can even transform into electricity, just like Sandman, becoming intangible. Su Luo flew rapidly through the city, constantly spraying cobwebs. But elemental transformation requires the absorption of a certain amount of electrical power, which consumes a lot of electricity. Also, Electro has a limit to how much electrical power he can absorb. Once it exceeds a certain limit, he can no longer absorb it. Otherwise, it will explode. Furthermore, if the consumption of electrical power in his body is almost depleted, Electro in his electric form will also revert back to his human form and can no longer use electrical power. Only by recharging can he use his electric current abilities again. Su Luo paused for a moment. I also have electrical abilities, but there are huge differences between me and Electro. Electro absorbs electricity and releases it, while I originally generate electricity and then release it. The strength of Electro depends on the electrical power he absorbs, and there is a limit, although this limit is relatively high. But the strength of my electrical abilities depends on the strength of my physique. The stronger my physique, the stronger the special bioelectricity in my body. Currently, it seems that there is no limit to my electrical abilities, but the effectiveness is slower. In addition, after awakening my electrical abilities, my cells are basically immune to electricity. So, Electro's attacks are useless against me. Su Luo shot out cobwebs and continued to speed forward, a glimmer of light passing through his eyes. If I can absorb Electro's abilities, my electrical abilities and methods will become stronger. Special bioelectricity as a long-term growth ability. Electro's electrical abilities as a short-term combat ability. As long as I replenish enough electrical power, I can have excellent electrical attacks for a short period of time. Most importantly, I can also transform into an electric current and move through places with electrical appliances and wires. My survival abilities, infiltration, or escape abilities will be further enhanced. By the way, if I can transform into an electric current, wouldn't it be easy for me to infiltrate that military base? If that's the case, I will have a better chance of finding an opportunity to capture Luke Cage. Thinking of this, a fervent look flashed in Su Luo's eyes. Electro, don't run, I'm coming. Now that you become my employee, just keep dedicating yourself to me. On his chest, little Spider-Man's 2 feet scratched against the pocket, and a small head popped out, blowing in the wind. It swayed its little head slightly, showing a contented expression. Hearing Su Luo's words, little Spider-Man's eyes brightened, and it extended its right foot. Charge forward, charge forward. www. At Daredevil's home. Daredevil sat on the sofa, changed back into ordinary clothes, and held the vial in his hand. The hand holding the vial was trembling slightly. It showed his excitement. He took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He murmured, "This time, I must succeed. I want to regain the light." "Definitely." Psst. He directly injected the potion into his body. Immediately after, the violent medicinal power rushed into his limbs and body. It quickly repaired the hidden injuries inside him. Those internal injuries caused by years of rigorous training and battles, such as blood, organs, meridians, and other internal damages. They were rapidly being repaired. Daredevil could only feel a warm and extremely fast sensation throughout his body, as if countless little hands were massaging him, causing Daredevil to involuntarily let out a comfortable moan. He felt a level of comfort in his body that he had never experienced before. The previously faintly painful areas completely disappeared. At the same time, the powerful medicinal power rushed towards his eyes, beginning to repair his damaged eyes. The central retinal artery occlusion caused by arteriosclerosis began to dissolve. The arterial walls began to thin and the lumen widened. The blood flow passage widened, and the occlusion was instantly washed away. At the same time, it rapidly dissolved. At the same time, the medicinal power rushed towards the axons of the 1 to 1.2 million ganglion cells in his eyeballs, beginning to repair the necrotic optic nerves, connecting a large number of nerves and restoring vitality. The massive optic nerves were rapidly being repaired. Soon, all the optic nerves were completely repaired. In an instant, Daredevil regained his vision. The entire room came into view. Various colors appeared in his line of sight, vibrant and dazzling. All objects were so clear. He could even clearly see the texture of the wooden coffee table in front of him. He could clearly see the calluses on his own hands and the muscle texture on them. He picked up a mirror beside him. Suddenly, his own face appeared clearly in his eyes, familiar yet unfamiliar. After many years, Daredevil finally saw his own face again. His hands were trembling. He quickly took out his wallet and opened it. A photo appeared before his eyes. It was a middle-aged man with a smiling face. The image, blurred by time, once again vividly appeared before his eyes. 2 tears slid down Daredevil's eyes. "Father, I see your face again." Osborn Corporation. Electro ran towards the finance department. Soon, he arrived at the floor of the finance department. Electro was extremely excited. Finally, I'm going to get rich too. At this moment, Norman, who had recovered, caught up once again. Seeing Norman catching up, Electro coldly snorted. "You coming up here serves no purpose. You're not my opponent at all." After speaking, electric current diary left Norman behind. Norman dodged. Flying darts and pumpkin bombs were thrown. Electric current dodged the flying darts, but the pumpkin bomb exploded halfway. Boom! Electric current was directly blasted away. A slight smile appeared on Norman's face. "I thought you really couldn't hit me." Electric current was infuriated. He got up and roared, "You're asking for death." He stretched out his hands and aimed at Norman. A string of electric currents flew towards Norman. Norman quickly dodged, but immediately, electric current threw out an electric chain. Norman was hit and instantly stiffened. Electric current's hands erupted. A powerful electric current blasted out. Boom! Norman's armor was blasted with a big hole. His whole body shot out and crashed into a wall, leaving a deep dent in the wall. Norman completely lost his fighting ability, with a few arcs of electricity emanating from his body and his body twitching slightly. Damn, too strong. Norman struggled to lift his head and looked at electric current. Seeing this, electric current laughed heartily. "I told you, no one can match me. My electric power is invincible." He didn't look at Norman, but looked towards the finance room ahead as he prepared to rush over there. Boom! The company's glass was shattered to 1.8. A dark figure wearing a mask rushed in. Seeing the newcomer, Norman's eyes lit up instantly. He naturally knew that the person in front of him was Su Luo, but his gaze dimmed because in his view, Su Luo's strength was similar to his own, just with better combat skills. But that was useless against electric current. There was no time to get close to electric current, as he would be blasted away. Norman weakly said, "Quick, leave. You're not his opponent. Quick, leave." He raised a hand slightly, wanting to warn Su Luo. Su Luo looked at electric current in front of him, still maintaining a human mentality, and felt slightly relieved. This kind of electric current was easier to capture. Immediately, his eyes became eager. This would be his new experimental material. Little Spider-Man in his front pocket didn't show up, quietly staying inside the pocket. But its eyes were filled with excitement. It seemed to be looking forward to the upcoming electric ability user. Seeing the sudden rush out of the guy, electric current was furious. "Damn it! Where did this guy come from again? Why do you have to come out and stop me? Osborn is so rich. What's wrong with me taking a little? Why is all the money in the hands of these capitalists? Why should I be poor? I'm taking this money today. No one can stop me." He raised his hands. "You dare to stop me? Go die," he roared. His hands erupted with a strong electric current, rushing towards Su Luo. Su Luo stood still, motionless. Norman growled, "Get out of the way." 086 that a mortal friend is transcending tribulation. Lightning elementalization. The electric man looked into Su Luo's calm eyes and felt a slight sense of unease in his heart. Immediately after, a violent electric current rushed into Su Luo's limbs and body. Countless electric arcs erupted from the opponent's body. Crackling sounds filled the air. In this moment, Su Luo appeared like a deity enveloped in thunder and lightning. After a series of crackling sounds, the electric arcs disappeared, dissipating into the air. Occasionally, small electric arcs would emerge from the air around him with a crackling sound. But Su Luo himself showed no signs of being affected at all. Currently, Su Luo cells are unable to store external electric current, only special bioelectricity. Therefore, the electric current released by the electric man ultimately flowed into the ground or dissipated into the air. Seeing Su Luo completely unaffected, Norman's slightly raised hand froze instantly. His expression was somewhat incredulous. What's going on? Why is he completely unharmed? Seeing this, the electric man's eyes almost popped out. His attack had actually failed. The electric man stammered, "How? How is this possible? How could this happen? Why doesn't my electric current have any effect on him?" Witnessing this scene, the electric man was greatly shocked. After all, suddenly gaining a powerful super ability and crushing everything in his path. In his eyes, he was practically invincible. But now there appeared to be someone immune to his ability. This was something the electric man couldn't accept. The electric man narrowed his eyes and raised his hands again. "No, it's impossible. Facing my ability, how could you not be injured? Maybe I used too little electricity," he roared. "Then let me show you a stronger electric current." Saying that, he raised his hand. Su Luo's eyes flashed with determination as he rushed towards the electric man. He had to capture the opponent as soon as possible to prevent him from coming into contact with electric current again and absorbing more electrical energy. Seeing this, the electric man let out a loud roar. His hands erupted with a strong electric current. Countless electric arcs mixed together, forming an exploding electric ball. Outside the building, it seemed to be responding to the electric man's anger and roar. Boom! Terrifying thunder tore through the night. Resounding thunder echoed through the heavens and earth. The dark night became as bright as day. Boom! The electric ball in front of the electric man burst with a strong electric current, rushing towards Su Luo. Crackling sounds filled the air, like a roaring and ferocious electric dragon. The strong electric current rushed into Su Luo's body. His clothes were insulators, designed to protect against the damage caused by his own use of electricity. He didn't expect them to come in handy here, to withstand someone else's lightning attack. A strong electric current erupted from Su Luo's body once again. Countless electric arcs burst on his skin, radiating brilliance. But just like before, there was not a single trace of injury on Su Luo's body, not even slowing down his steps. The strong electric current either flowed into the ground or dissipated into the air, just as before. Seeing this, the electric man clenched his teeth and unleashed an even stronger electric current. Boom! The originally thin electric current instantly surged to the thickness of a thigh. The stronger electric current entered Su Luo's body, causing an even more intense electric current to burst from his body. His whole body instantly became silver, like a silver sun. He moved against the thunder, repeatedly tearing apart the terrifying thunder. This scene directly stunned the people around. The sound of swallowing saliva could be heard from the surroundings. Is this person? Who is this guy? So powerful. Oh my god, this is too cool. In the front pocket of Su Luo's clothes, little Spider-Man lay comfortably, and the strong electric current also flowed into its body. Under the stimulation of this electric current, little Spider-Man felt a warm sensation all over its body, as if soaking in hot water. It blissfully squinted its eyes, with a look of intoxication on its face. Ooh. Comfortable Su Luo had already arrived in front of the electric man. Su Luo's strength was constantly metamorphosing, and his height had reached nearly 1.9 meters. Currently, he was already 1.88 meters tall. The electric man, who was around 1.7 meters tall, seemed small in front of him. He looked down at the electric man, one big hand gripping the electric man's head. Su Luo, who was filled with silver lightning, exuded a sense of oppression, as if a god had descended. He calmly said, "Your electric current is quite comfortable." Countless thunderbolts exploded on his body. It was as if he was the source of thunder. Upon hearing these words, the electric man's mentality exploded. Quite comfortable, looking at the two of them fighting like immortals. The people around all scattered, keeping their distance and not daring to approach even a little bit. Everyone was trembling. If the exit hadn't been blocked, these people might have run away long ago. Oh my god, these two guys are too terrifying. I hope we won't be accidentally injured. Just like in the Avengers Alliance fights, many innocent people also suffer and die. Don't say that. I'm about to wet myself. I'm going to cry. Why am I so unlucky? Feeling the 5 fingers on his head like an unbreakable iron hoop, the Electric Man couldn't move at all, as if his head was sealed in dried cement. A trace of fear rose in the Electric Man's eyes. His whole body was covered in goosebumps. He screamed in terror. The electric current all over his body, at this moment, was released without reservation, like a torrent bursting through a dam. His eyes instantly turned pure white. The raging electric current rushed into the Electric Man's head, towards the hand that was gripping his head. Boom! The terrifying electric current exploded from Su Luo as the center. Countless small electric arcs surged in all directions. The surroundings lit up. The strength of the electric field began to rapidly increase. Powerful shockwaves and electromagnetic pulses instantly spread out. The walls next to Su Luo and the Electric Man instantly dented and cracked. A long dent spread out, as if a huge stick had struck. The central dent was the most severe, and you could even see broken wires inside, with a little bit of electric light still flowing. On the other side, bang, 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 the glass outer wall of a distant building was shattered by the shockwave. Falling down, it turned into countless fragments. A rain of glass shards is falling, shining brightly in the dark night. Fortunately, it is late at night now. Coupled with the thunderstorm, there is no one below, and no damage has been caused. The dazzling light fades away. Su Luo's Electric Man has completely lost his power, with no electric arcs on his body, and he looks just like an ordinary person. Even his physical fitness is no different from an ordinary person. He is even more unable to break free from Su Luo's hand. And because of the increase in field strength, there are strands of electric arcs constantly appearing in the air. Very strange. The Electric Man looks up at Su Luo, who is unharmed in front of him, his mouth wide open, unable to make a sound out of fear. Despair and pain surge in the Electric Man's heart. Just when he finally obtained a super ability and hadn't been arrogant for long, he encountered someone who completely restrained him. Moreover, he has been captured by someone and cannot move at all. He's finished, completely finished. He is going to jail. He may even be sliced by government agencies. Various desperate thoughts flood the Electric Man's mind, accompanied by heart palpitations from watching horror movies in the past. He trembles uncontrollably with fear. The Electric Man was just a nobody not long ago, even a somewhat failed nobody. Because he suddenly gained power, his mentality swelled. After losing his power, he quickly returned to the state of an ordinary person and regained the mentality of a nobody. Su Luo looks at the Electric Man without any power, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. Very good. Su Luo sees that the Electric Man has finally exhausted his electric energy and has become completely helpless, and he feels a slight relief in his heart. He immediately waves his hand to knock the other person unconscious, to avoid any unexpected situations. But at this moment, boom, a deafening sound, a terrifying thunder tears through the dark clouds, striking towards the Osborne building, piercing through the sky, directly towards the floor where Su Luo is located, rushing towards the area filled with high electric field intensity and the most concentrated electric charge around Su Luo. The speed is extremely fast, almost beyond everyone's reaction. Boom, boom, immediately followed by 2 thick thunderbolts falling down, attracted by the same force, rushing towards the area around Su Luo. So, many people in New York see a miraculous scene. One after another, thunderbolts rush towards one place, all in the same direction, as if there is a thunderous black hole there. A black hole specially attracting thunder. Oh my God, is this punishing a criminal? Striking continuously at one place. What kind of crime is this? It takes 3 lightning strikes. He's definitely done for. A Chinese international student watches this scene, puts down his ebook, and mutters, "Damn, which immortal friend is going through tribulation?" 3 consecutive strikes of such thick thunderbolts. This immortal friend must be in the Mahayana stage. Lu Dai is not deceiving me. There really are cultivators in the world. 3 thick thunderbolts strike towards Su Luo and the others. Seeing this sudden lightning, Su Luo widens his eyes. Not good. The surrounding electric charge is too strong, attracting lightning. For Su Luo, attracting lightning has no impact on him personally. But these lightning strikes have tremendous energy and will bring powerful electric energy to the electric man. Boom, boom, boom. 3 thunderbolts almost merged into one and rushed into the bodies of the two. The electric energy in the bodies of the electric man surged instantly. In an instant, it broke through the critical line. In a blink of an eye, the electric man transformed into electric current. Su Luo's hand suddenly grasped nothing. The electric man looked at his body transformed into electric current and exclaimed in excitement, "I didn't expect that I could still become like this. Ha ha ha. Heaven does not abandon me." The electric man looked at Su Luo, his eyes filled with a hint of fear. This man, who was his natural enemy, made him feel extremely fearful. He had to quickly get away from him. Whoosh! He rushed towards the cracked wall on the side, because there were electrical wires inside. Su Luo wanted to grab him, but he couldn't catch hold of this electric current at all. The opponent directly rushed into the electrical wires and escaped. Seeing this, Su Luo frowned. Damn, this weather is too friendly to the electric man. Little Spider-Man, lying in his pocket, also sensed all of this. It drooped its little head and sighed. The electric man ran away, so naturally Su Luo wouldn't stay here. He sprinted towards the building, leaped out, and flew towards the safe house. I must not let the electric man escape. I must catch him and replicate his ability. Thinking of the scene where the opponent turned into electric current and disappeared into the electrical wires, a hint of eagerness flashed in Su Luo's eyes. I must obtain this ability. Next, I must find the electric man. The electric man will not leave New York. After all, his home is here. Next, either he will go home, or he will continue to commit crimes and seek more wealth through his ability. So, next, I either have to find this guy's residence, or find the place where he commits crimes again, and then capture him in one fell swoop. Su Luo flew through the air, with a strong wind whistling and rustling his clothes. His eyes remained calm and unaffected by the electric man's escape, without anger or frustration. He only had one thought in his mind, which was to catch the opponent again and make sure he couldn't escape. But after the electric man escapes this time, his vigilance will definitely increase. And with the ability to transform into elements, he will definitely keep that ability at all times. So, I must find a way to counter his elemental transformation. Unfortunately, I don't have the corresponding data on this guy. Otherwise, I should be able to make a serum that temporarily suppresses his power. After all, in the Spider-Man 3 plot, where 3 Spider-Men appeared together, they created a similar serum. This shows that this thing can be made. However, this Electric Man is not the same person as the Electric Man from that parallel universe. This Electric Man is from this universe. Although they are different people, the method of eliminating the ability should be the same. It's just that he doesn't have the corresponding data on the Electric Man's transformation, so he can't make the corresponding serum. So he can only take a different approach. I need to find a completely insulated container to imprison him so that he can escape by transforming into electric current. Then reduce the electric energy in his body. Turn him into an ordinary person. In Su Luo's mind, he recalled the scene where Iron Man summoned the iron prison that descended from the sky and enveloped the Hulk. He murmured, "It seems that I also need to make a similar sturdy, insulated cage. When combined, they can form a cage to trap the Electric Man, and it should be able to withstand the destruction caused by the Electric Man." After obtaining powerful electric energy, the Electric Man's physical fitness will also improve. In addition, this cage needs to have the ability to reduce electric energy or extract electric energy from the Electric Man's body. Thinking of this, a gleam of light flashed in Su Luo's eyes. Boom! Thunder roared. The sky and earth brightened, illuminating the swift silhouette of Su Luo, which darted like an arrow, traversing the sky and earth. illuminating the cold light in Su Luo's eyes. 87 Invisible Girl? My bio stance. Su Luo Tian showed his supernatural power. Quickly, Su Luo returned to his safe house. Back to the basement. He turned on his computer. Suddenly, the screens on the wall lit up one by one. There were also surveillance feeds from the military base. Su Luo glanced at the surveillance feeds of the military base and was immediately drawn to the scenes inside. The security operations at the entire military base had clearly been stepped up. There were patrols everywhere, and everyone's expressions were solemn. Seeing this, Su Luo furrowed his brows slightly. What's going on? The defense of the military base has become even tighter. It seems that something is about to happen inside the military base. To prevent any accidents, the defense has been strengthened. Su Luo instantly thought of Luke Cage. The military base had just captured Luke Cage, and now they would definitely be studying him. And his previous search for information on Luke Cage must have alerted the military. So, in order to guard against him, and at the same time against Luke Cage's powers, the security forces were strengthened. It seems that these guys are preparing to study Luke Cage. Su Luo moved forward slightly to see if there were any special situations. The surveillance videos quickly flew by. Su Luo watched the screens intently. Quickly, Su Luo paused the surveillance video, and then zoomed in, and then played it slowly. Su Luo stared at the screen. A car drove into the military base. A slightly thin figure got out of the car and walked toward the nearby mountain. During the walk, he glanced around and showed a hint of determination. Su Luo slowed down the playback speed and watched frame by frame. Finally, he saw the person's face clearly. After seeing it clearly, Su Luo's eyes narrowed. Abomination. And it's Abomination who has already regained his human form. I didn't expect Abomination to regain his human form so early. Su Luo knew that in some future Marvel TV series, Abomination had already gained the ability to transform into a human form. But he didn't expect that at this time, Abomination had already mastered this ability. After all, compared to the Hulk's transformation, Abomination's transformation was more stable and harder to revert to human form. He didn't know what happened in between that caused Abomination to change into a human form. But at the same time, Abomination's appearance made Su Luo furrow his brows slightly. After all, this was an existence that could contend with the Hulk. Su Luo looked at the figure and murmured, I need to find Electro's ability as soon as possible. If I have Electro's ability, accumulate electrical energy to the extreme, and then release it with all my strength. The terrifying amount of electricity may not be able to kill Abomination, but it will be enough to temporarily overwhelm him. Su Luo began typing on the keyboard. He once again infiltrated the entire public surveillance system of New York. At the same time, he also hacked into the alarm system and filtered and set the alarm information. Only information about Electro would be reported, and the rest would not be reported. In addition, Su Luo used the personal information left by Electro in the company to find out where he lived, and he monitored the person's home through public surveillance cameras. After completing these tasks, Su Luo began to set up a special prison. He is preparing to set up a special prison similar to Iron Man's Veronica. That is a large iron block deployed in outer space like Iron Man. During the time, while descending the equipment, it forms an anti-Hulk armor and a steel prison to restrain Hulk. However, Su Luo's new equipment will not be deployed in outer space. It's too far away, and it will take a long time to obtain the equipment. At least for now, he doesn't need such a thing. He just needs to place the new equipment high above New York. If he needs something from it, with a simple gesture, the thing will descend from the sky and be directly available for his use. Efficiency will be greatly improved. Naturally, an insulated prison for imprisoning Electro will be deployed here. As for other things, he hasn't figured it out yet. Su Luo first designed the insulated prison. First, the insulated prison will be similar to the steel prison that imprisons Hulk, consisting of a dozen or so plates, which will then be combined together to form a flashing military. But Hulk's steel prison doesn't have a bottom, so there will be a loophole and it won't form a completely enclosed space. This ultimately led to the Hulk breaking through the restraints by breaking through the Earth. Although Electro shouldn't have the ability to break through the Earth, it's still better to be cautious. So the insulated prison cannot have such a loophole, and I will also seal the bottom. I can use a cobweb-like subatomic technology to compress the insulation material to the bottom, and once the prison is synthesized, the insulation material will be released and fill the bottom, thoroughly forming a complete enclosed space and locking Electro inside for testing. Su Luo tapped on the keyboard and mouse, drawing on the screen to create a sketch design. The exterior will have machinery and steel with a combination of prisons, automatic flight, and target locking capabilities. The interior will be made up of multiple layers of insulation material, sealing it inside. Su Luo continued. I remember that Electro has a huge weakness compared to me, which is that he is afraid of water. Compared to me, Electro is more like a power bank, with a complete circuit formed inside his body. Once he uses his electrical abilities and his body comes into contact with water, it will short-circuit and temporarily lose his electrical abilities. In the original work, Spider-Man dealt with Electro in this way. So I can also weaken him by targeting this weakness of Electro's. Inside the insulation material, I will add an additional layer of water protection, so that when Electro releases his electrical energy, water can be sprayed into his body from all directions. This way, it will cause a short circuit in Electro's internal circuitry and temporarily deprive him of his power. Su Luo tapped the keyboard. If I replicate Electro's super abilities and combine them with my own electrical abilities, I should be able to eliminate this fear of water weakness. But the specifics will have to wait until I catch Electro. At this moment, a bell rang. It was an alarm. Someone inside a small supermarket had called the police. They reported that someone had rushed into their supermarket and committed robbery. Using electricity to stun them, they took away thousands of dollars and some food and drink from the store. Hearing this, Su Luo quickly tapped on the keyboard and hacked into the small supermarket. He immediately saw Electro's face. Sure enough, you're still constantly committing crimes. It seems that after being defeated by Osborn, you become more cautious and have chosen a smaller location. But such a small place definitely won't satisfy your greed. Soon, you'll be looking for a bigger place to plunder. So, it won't be long before you show up again. When you show up next time, I think it will be when we meet. After confirming that Electro was not lurking, but eagerly continuing his criminal activities, Su Luo felt relieved. Immediately, after finalizing the general direction of the new equipment, he began to work on the details. The technical complexity of the insulated prison was not too high, so Su Luo didn't spend too much time from design to completion. He quickly started production. Sizzle. Inside the equipment laboratory, flames bloomed on the steel. Welding and cutting were constantly taking place. Little Spider-Man sat quietly on a table next to it, with a mobile phone playing online classes in front of him, studying hard. Little Spider-Man is very smart, and he has already started learning middle school knowledge. Inside a car, the Electric Man sat in the back seat, surrounded by various foods and drinks. On the passenger seat, there was a stack of money. A smile appeared on the Electric Man's face. I finally have money. I can finally escape from the days of poverty. Soon, I can provide my mother with a better house and a better life. My mother will no longer have to suffer with me. Thinking that he could finally give his elderly mother a better life, the Electric Man's heart was filled with joy. After all, for so many years, he had relied on his mother, living in a rundown house. Because he had no prospects, no abilities, and was introverted and eccentric, he not only did not marry, but also did not provide a good environment for his mother, causing her to work hard. Even now, in his 40s, he still lived with his mother, and their basic needs were all supported by his mother's money. This also made his mother appear older than her peers. Although his mother had never blamed the Electric Man, he always felt sorry for her. So, after having money, the first thing the Electric Man thought of was his mother, to improve her living environment, to relieve her from labor, and to let her start enjoying life. After all, he found a better place to live, no longer needing to reside in the previous cramped and old house. Soon, the Electric Man returned to the old rundown house. He woke up his mother and moved with her. Definitely, there was almost nothing to take. Only some important things were taken. Soon, The electric man left the house where they had lived for a long time with his mother. His mother was puzzled. Why are we moving? We don't have money. The electric man grinned and lied. Because I got a new job and my boss values me a lot. So he arranged a new place for me to live and even increase my salary. Mom, from now on, you can enjoy your son's blessings. I won't let you work so hard in the second half of your life. Hearing her son's words, a surprised smile appeared on the mother's face. Finally, someone appreciates my son. Where does your boss live? If you have time, Mom will bring some things to visit and thank him. The electric man said, No need. My boss is often out of the country and has an unpredictable schedule. You probably won't be able to meet him. All right, Mom, don't think too much. Let's go to the new house. You can sleep in a bigger bed and have a better room. The mother muttered, Mother doesn't need to live in such a good house. You should take care of yourself more. Don't work so hard. You're not young anymore. You can't handle the labor. Your health is important. And now that your conditions have improved, you can find a partner. Mom will eventually leave. I can't watch you for the rest of your life. You need someone to support each other. Listening to his mother's muttering, the electric man's nose tingled. His mother had worked hard for him all her life. The electric man secretly vowed to let his mother enjoy a good life in the future. That night, there was a heavy rain. By the next morning, the heavy rain had stopped and the dark clouds had dispersed. It came and went quickly. The next morning, Su Luo had completed the construction of a new device. It was a relatively large mechanical body. When assembled together, it formed a metal cube the size of a normal room. Inside the entire mechanical body, anti-gravity technology was used. It allowed the mechanical body to stably float in midair. However, the energy source Su Luo was currently using was not very efficient. It could only support the mechanical body to float in the air for half a month. After half a month, new energy needed to be added. If he could obtain the technology of the arc reactor, the duration of the mechanical body suspension would be greatly extended. But for Su Luo at the moment, half a month was enough. He just needed to frequently replenish the energy. Inside the mechanical body, there's an insulated prison cell placed there. Composed of 13 plates, tightly fused together, it forms a diamond shape, just like the steel prison that encases the green giant. When unfolded and assembled, it becomes a small enclosed prison that can envelop a person. The entire mechanical body, temporarily named Air Arsenal by Su Luo. Definitely, the entire mechanical body is also coated with a layer of stealth coating on the outside, which can prevent radar detection and the like. In addition to this, the mechanical body also has a visual stealth function, a technology that has long been developed and even used on helicarriers and some ships of S.H.I.E.L.D. So there are also some defective ones in HYDRA's database, which Su Luo has completed and applied. After completing these, Su Luo opened the ceiling. The land in the backyard suddenly unfolded, revealing the laboratory below. Su Luo tapped the keyboard a few times. The massive mechanical body disappeared from stealth and immediately rose up, flying towards the sky. Soon, it stopped at the target altitude and hovered steadily in midair. After completing these, Su Luo nodded in satisfaction. Next, it's time to capture Electro. Not long after, Su Luo received an alarm about Electro robbing a jewelry store. Finally, he's here. In front of the jewelry store, Electro was holding a large bag of things. His face was covered in electricity, almost obscuring his features. He was fighting against 4 people wearing blue outfits. One of them could release flames. Some could elongate their bodies. Some are made entirely of stone. Some could emit protective shields. The people who arrived were none other than the Fantastic Four. Electro, in full power, released a terrifying electric current. Directly piercing through the protective shield, he sent the invisible woman flying. He even blasted the thing far away, crushing a car. Even Mr. Fantastic couldn't withstand the terrifying electric current being blasted away and burned. The Human Torch couldn't hold on either. Facing the terrifying lightning, he was directly knocked down. There was no way. The Fantastic Four had just debuted at this moment, and they hadn't fully realized their abilities, so they couldn't defeat their opponent at all. Electro laughed heartily. I am in my prime now. You can't stop me at all. Saying that, He prepared to leave with a bag of gold. Just at that moment, whoosh, 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 the sky rang with the sound of tearing air. Everyone looked up. A dark figure descended from the sky. But those tearing air sound were not coming from him. They were from the 13 metal long plates behind him. They were like 13 flying swords in flight. It was as if a wheel made of swords was closely following behind him. That scene made everyone's pupils shrink. The figure waved his hand. The 13 metal long plates shot toward Electro. Bang, bang, bang. They struck the ground around Electro. The momentum was astonishing. They formed an iron prison, firmly enclosing him. 088 capturing the original evil beast, Electro-Optical Man ability, is successfully reproduced. Everyone was shocked by this grand scene. Steel bars fell from the sky, smashing into the ground and trapping people, creating a powerful visual impact. Everyone felt as if the earth had trembled for a moment. Su Luo also landed on the ground. He clenched his fist. Instantly, the bottom of the insulating prison burst open, and the alloys combined, cutting through the earth. At the same time, a layer of subatomic insulating liquid sprayed out from the alloy, rapidly generating layers of insulating material, instantly filling the void left by the insulating material at the bottom. In an instant, the entire prison was completely enveloped in insulating material. There was no gap at all. Mr. Fantastic saw Su Luo using metal to surround Electro, and he shook his head. It's useless. A metal prison can't stop his electric current. He can easily blast a big hole. As he spoke, he endured the pain and got up. Su Luo didn't pay any attention to Mr. Fantastic's words. His focus was more on the Fantastic Four, especially the Invisible Woman, because the Invisible Woman's ability was one of the abilities that his Superman prototype needed. The Invisible Woman's super ability was to manipulate the invisible field. She could use the invisible field to make people invisible and also form a force field using the invisible field. If developed to the extreme, she could even use the invisible field to achieve high-speed flight and create a force field explosion inside an opponent's body. In addition, she could also use the invisible field to emit ultrasonic shockwaves for attacks, using the field for flight and defense. This was very similar to Superman's biological field. But for now, the Invisible Woman was not his target. After all, you have to take things one step at a time. He still needed to deal with Electro in his hands and settle the matter with Luke Cage. Seeing Su Luo looking at them, the Fantastic Four thought that Su Luo had listened to their words. The Invisible Woman got up from the ground. Let's continue the fight. The others also got up one after another. Electro looked at the thing that trapped him and shouted, "This thing can't hold me. I can easily break free from it." Hearing the roar from the prison, the Fantastic Four outside had a serious expression on their faces. Su Luo shook his head. "No need to be nervous, it's over." Inside the prison, Electro was about to launch an attack, releasing huge amounts of electric current from his hands. Just at that moment, high-pressure water lines burst out from all directions and rushed towards Electro, drenching his whole body. The next moment, a short circuit occurred. Electro trembled all over, and smoke rose from his body. Electro let out a scream. Ah! Soon after, his eyes rolled back, his feet kicked, and with a bang, he fell inside the insulating prison. The people outside were preparing to face Electro's attack, but then they heard a scream. And then they heard a bang. Inside the steel prison, there was no sound anymore. Su Luo saw this, and a satisfied expression appeared in his eyes. He immediately stepped forward, lifted the insulating prison, and with a burst of speed, quickly disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving behind a bewildered crowd. The Fantastic Four looked at each other. The thing scratched his head. This is resolved. Such a tough opponent, and he was defeated by an iron cage. Human Torch looked at Su Luo's disappearing figure. Who is this guy? He solved this electric guy with just one move. Why have I never heard of such a person before? Mr. Fantastic frowned and said, "It seems that it's not as simple as just a prison cell. There must be a method inside that restrains this guy. Moreover, The fact that he can lift such a large iron block and run so fast indicates that his strength and speed have reached an astonishing level. Who is this person? Why have I never heard of such a powerful person? Shortly after, Su Luo returned to the basement, holding a transparent insulated prison cell, entering directly from the backyard. After all, the insulated prison cell was quite large in size. The main entrance was impossible to enter. After Su Luo entered, he went into a specially modified insulated room. He immediately opened the insulated prison cell, revealing the unconscious Electro inside. Su Luo quickly drew a tube of blood from him, then locked him back in the insulated prison cell. After completing these tasks, he left the laboratory. Su Luo did not immediately start researching Electro. After all, Electro still contained powerful electrical energy at the moment, and there was a great potential for escape. His research on Electro would take a considerable amount of time. During this period, as long as Electro woke up, it would be easy for him to escape along the instrument circuit. If that were to happen, the research would fail. Therefore, Su Luo's first task was not to study him, but to use his DNA to develop a special serum that could suppress Electro's abilities. Only by suppressing Electro's abilities could he continue his research. Su Luo carried the blood of Electro and went to the biological laboratory. At the same time, a message arrived on Su Luo's computer. It was sent by Kurt. Su Luo opened his email. Inside were some information that Su Luo had asked Kurt to investigate. During this time, Su Luo asked Kurt to inquire about Beast, Essex's mastermind, chemical number 7, and other related information. And what Kurt sent this time was the information about Beast. According to Kurt's findings, once Beast possessed someone, it seemed that unless that person died, Beast could not possess another person. Moreover, Beast seemed to have to possess a person in order to exert its power. In addition, once the person who was possessed by Beast was restrained, Beast would also be restrained. The weakness of Beast was the person it possessed. This was what Kurt currently understood. Seeing this, Su Luo murmured, "It's a pity that I didn't find out about Beast's abilities. I can't have a clearer understanding of Beast's abilities. If I had a clearer understanding of Beast's abilities, maybe I could take action against it and capture it. A primitive demon should have strong research value, and a primitive demon must be good at magic. If I can capture it, maybe I can make up for my lack of knowledge in magic. Moreover, I remember that there's a strong countermeasure against Ghost Rider. It is a very rare existence that can counter Ghost Rider, so Beast has a strong capturing ability. Unfortunately, I still know too little about Beast, and I am completely insufficient to take further action." The reason why he inquired about Beast was because Su Luo had developed a strong interest in this guy and had the intention to capture him. But with the current lack of information, he could only bury this intention in his heart for now. Su Luo looked at the blood of Electro in his hand and said, "Now, let's create the suppressing serum." Thinking of this, Su Luo began to study the blood of Electro in his hand. He quickly analyzed Electro's DNA. In addition, Su Luo had previously studied the genes of Wolverine's clone, X-24, as well as the current food. He discovered the inhibitory effect of the current food on mutant genes, as well as the improvement of the X-24 gene, which made it immune to this inhibition. From this, Su Luo learned some techniques for suppressing abilities. Now, it was just the right time to use them on Electro. However, what he learned from Essex was a technique for permanently suppressing abilities. Su Luo doesn't need permanent suppression. He only needs temporary suppression for a period of time. So the difficulty will be smaller. The main method is to edit special genetic information to suppress and weaken the extraordinary genes, temporarily rendering them inactive and ineffective, making it impossible for a person to use their super abilities for a short period of time. Definitely, the stronger the super ability, the higher the difficulty, and the more complex the genetic suppression techniques required. It may even require some external forces. Currently, the abilities of the Electric Man are completely within Su Luo's knowledge of genetic suppression and do not require any powerful external forces. Inside the entire room, only Su Luo's swift movements and focused mind. because he already possesses some techniques for suppressing abilities. So Su Luo's progress is quite fast. After analyzing the Electric Man's DNA, Su Luo began to attempt to suppress the extraordinary part of the Electric Man's DNA. He found the nodes for suppression and began editing the genes. In this primary structure, adenosine needs to be added. The basic residues in the protein can form ionic bonds with the acidic sugar phosphate backbone of DNA, causing the base sequences in the complex to separate from each other. The contactability of the protein to different bases depends on whether the bases are in the major groove or the minor groove. Here, the high-level structure of the superhelix needs to be adjusted a bit. As he constantly edited, the extraordinary gene segment in the Electric Man's DNA began to be suppressed and temporarily lost its effectiveness. Finally, with Su Luo's completion of the editing, the extraordinary gene group in the Electric Man's DNA has been completely suppressed, temporarily losing its effectiveness and activity. In the next 3 days, it will completely lose its effectiveness and be unable to function. Seeing this, Su Luo's eyes brightened. Finally completed. Very good. Next is to start making the serum. Su Luo's hands moved swiftly. Before long, he completed the production of the serum. A brand new vial of serum appeared before Su Luo. A vial of pale green special serum. The specially made suppression serum for the Electric Man's ability, successfully made. Immediately, Su Luo entered the insulated room. Closed the insulated room. Su Luo opened the insulated cell. The Electric Man inside had already woken up. Seeing Su Luo, who was still dressed tightly, he felt a wave of fear. He thought about escaping. Just at this moment, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A large number of water pipes aimed at the Electric Man from all directions, densely packed, making the Electric Man's scalp tingle. On the ground, the water had already risen to ankle level without anyone noticing. Su Luo calmly said, "Dare to move," feeling the water on his feet and looking at the terrifying water pipes around him. The Electric Man quickly shook his head. "No, I dare not move." Su Luo nodded. "Don't move. I will inject you with a serum that suppresses your ability." He honestly explained the effect of the serum, causing the Electric Man's scalp to tingle. He quickly wanted to dodge, but met Su Luo's calm gaze. Perhaps due to continuous setbacks, the Electric Man was filled with fear towards the man in front of him. He instantly dared not evade anymore and stood still in place, allowing Su Luo to give him an injection. That appearance is unusually obedient. After Su Luo finished the injection, he looked satisfied. "Very good. Now, let's start our experiment," he said. After saying that, he walked out of the insulated room. "Follow me," Su Luo's voice came from ahead, and the Electric Man quickly followed. After coming out, he looked at the surrounding instruments and wires and immediately had the thought of escaping. He quickly tried to use his own ability, but it was completely useless because he couldn't feel his ability anymore. His ability was indeed suppressed. The Electric Man lowered his head in despair, following Su Luo like a soulless zombie. The two of them then entered a separate operating room. Su Luo said to the Electric Man, "Lie down." Facing Su Luo, the Electric Man had no intention of resisting and immediately lay down, bound up. Lying on the operating table, terrifying scenes instantly appeared in the Electric Man's mind. He trembled all over. He immediately thought of his mother. If he died, what would his mother do? He was his mother's only relative, the most important person in her world. If he died, his mother would probably find it difficult to go on living. Even if she continued to live, an old woman would have a hard time, and she would suffer the pain of losing a child every day. When she got older, she would be alone, living a miserable life. Thinking of this, tears welled up in his eyes as he looked at Su Luo. "Can you not kill me? My mother is still waiting for me to come home." Although the Electric Man was afraid of death, he was even more afraid of his mother suffering in hell every day. Su Luo calmly said, "Cooperate well, and you might be able to survive." Su Luo actually didn't plan to kill the Electric Man, because the Electric Man still had a use. He wanted to push the limits of the Electric Man's ability, which required continuing experiments on him. After all, when it came to experiments, he wouldn't use himself as a subject. In addition, he needed the Electric Man to serve as a part of his intelligence system in the future, using the other's ability to gather various information for him. The most important thing was that Su Luo knew the Electric Man was filial, so he was relatively easy to control. Hearing Su Luo's words, the Electric Man widened his eyes. Really? Su Luo didn't say anything more and directly anesthetized the Electric Man, starting his own experiment. He had already analyzed the Electric Man's DNA before, and now he began to analyze how the Electric Man's ability was formed, what mutations occurred in the genes, and what abnormalities appeared in the chromosomes. In the following days, Su Luo continued to conduct related analyses and experiments. He began to integrate his own electric ability, carrying out corresponding combinations. The Electric Man originally feared water because he had a complex network of electric currents in his body to absorb, store, and release electric currents. Water would cause a short circuit in the Electric Man's original network of electric currents, causing him to lose his ability or even faint. Su Luo himself would not encounter this situation. Because of his special bioelectricity, he didn't need to go through a complex circuit to release it. He could release it directly, so there would be no short circuit. Su Luo redesigned the electric current network in the Electric Man's body, and the new network would only be responsible for absorbing and storing electric currents, no longer performing the action of releasing. Su Luo planned to use his own special bioelectricity to guide the storage of electric currents and release them, no longer relying on the electric current network for release. In this way, there would be no short circuit, and he would not be afraid of water-induced fainting. After a few days, Su Luo finally completed the replication of the Electric Man's ability. A bottle of specially made Electric Man ability serum was produced. Su Luo looked at the serum in his hand, a deep blue color, with many faint electric arcs generating and extinguishing inside. Exceptionally strange. Finally, it's done. Next, I can go find Luke Cage, Su Luo said. After saying that, he directly injected the serum into his own body. I didn't expect that the scene of the Electric Man escaping yesterday would cause some readers' dissatisfaction. Sigh, some people said I was dragging the plot, but I never had that intention. I just wanted to make the plot more interesting rather than writing a straightforward and heavily homogenized plot. 089, Su Luo turns into lightning. The steel body strengthening test begins. Immediately after, boom, Su Luo's whole body erupted with lightning. The complex network of electric currents within his body began to form. Quickly, the complete and beneficial network of electric currents within the human body took shape. Su Luo walked to the side. He picked up a wire, which was still flickering with electric sparks. He pinched the spot where the sparks were flickering, and then, immediately, the network of electric currents within his body started to activate. Suddenly, a suction force targeting electrical energy emerged, causing the electric current inside the wire to flow into Su Luo's network of electric currents. At that moment, Su Luo felt a warm and comfortable sensation throughout his body. Su Luo absorbed a little bit, allowing electrical energy to flow within his network of electric currents. He didn't continue absorbing more, mainly because Su Luo didn't want to absorb so much electrical energy that the entire area would lose power. Then, he activated the special bioelectricity within his body to activate the absorbed electrical energy. With the guidance of the special bioelectricity, the absorbed electrical energy also began to move. Su Luo raised his hand. Crackling sounds filled the air. A large number of electric arcs blossomed in his palm. These were two types of electrical energy intertwining. Success. Su Luo looked at the continuously exploding electric arcs in his hand, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes. Su Luo aimed at a wooden board. Whoosh! The electric current surged out. Bang! The wooden board was shattered. Seeing this, Su Luo nodded. Very good. The release is completely problem-free. And because it's not released through the network of electric currents, the fear of water is resolved. Next, it's time to charge, to completely fill myself with electrical energy. This way, not only will I have sufficient electrical energy but I will also be able to transform into an electric current element. Then, he walked to the side and picked up a special suit. This suit was created by Su Luo to simulate the Fantastic Four's clothing. The Fantastic Four's battle suits can adapt to their respective abilities. Just like the Invisible Woman's battle suit can turn invisible, and the Human Torch's battle suit can withstand extreme heat and increased temperature. Su Luo's battle suit is the same. It can adapt to Su Luo's electricity, and most importantly, it can transform along with Su Luo's electrical elementalization, becoming one with the element. So that when Su Luo transforms from lightning back into a human, he won't be naked. He put on a specially made battle suit. Su Luo immediately left the place and headed towards the power station. Inside a military base, outside a laboratory, General Ross and the person in charge stood there, observing through the glass. Inside, Luke Cage was lying in a special device. People in white lab coats were busy around him. They injected special potions and serums into the syringes next to them. Excitement filled their faces. After all, for them, this would be a great experiment. Once successful, they would become figures engraved in history. They would become milestones in the scientific community, the pride of the nation, and heroes of the people. Everyone was fully focused, diligently completing their tasks with meticulousness. In a corner of the laboratory, a middle-aged man sat on a chair, boredly watching everything. His demeanor was completely different from the others on the scene. While everyone else was extremely nervous, he seemed indifferent, as if the experiment being conducted was not a big deal. And this person was the despised antagonist, Bronsky. For Bransky, no matter how this experiment is conducted, the super soldier created will not be his opponent. So he doesn't care about it. He is only interested in the Hulk or a stronger existence. Outside the glass window, the person in charge spoke. General, we have reached the final stage. We have completed all the preparations for the completion of the experiment. Whether it is completing the serum or the auxiliary special potion, it's all done. As long as it is injected here and our experimental data is correct, then the experiment will be successful. Then Carl will complete the final optimization, becoming a complete steel enhancer, possessing a body harder than steel and having great strength. General Ross also showed some eagerness in his eyes. He quickly said, "Inject it immediately." It's not time yet. We still need to wait for Carl's physical values to reach their peak before injecting. This way, the chances of success will be the highest. We just need to wait a little longer. Soon, Carl's warm-up values will reach their peak. Hearing this, flowers are requested. Ross nodded. On the other side, after a burst of speed, Su Luo arrived at the power station. Looking at the power station in front of him, Su Luo said, "Next, I'm going to mooch off the electric power of the power company." After a few jumps, he arrived at a socket and directly inserted his hand into it. Immediately, he fully released his ability and began to absorb the electric power. Suddenly, Su Luo seemed like a black hole, exerting a huge influence on the electric power. Boom! A massive amount of electric power surged towards Su Luo and constantly flowed into his body. At this moment, Su Luo felt extremely comfortable, as if he was enveloped in a hot spring. Arcs of electricity also constantly appeared on his body, crackling. As he continued to absorb, more and more arcs of electricity appeared on his body, like flashes of lightning swirling around him. Seeing this, soon, Su Luo's absorption reached the limit of elemental transformation. The next moment, Su Luo directly transformed back into a human-shaped electric current, standing in place. At the same time, his ability to absorb electric current was greatly enhanced. He swallowed a large amount of electric current like a whale, which flowed into his body. Soon, his electrical capacity was full. He immediately stopped absorbing. Next, I will go to the military base and find a way to get Luke Cage out. Su Luo's human-shaped lightning rushed into the wires, flying through the electric current and wires. He sprinted towards a military base at a fast speed. Before coming, Su Luo had memorized the electrical circuits of New York, so he was very familiar with the route and had no chance of getting lost. Not long after, Su Luo arrived at a camera at a certain location in the military base. Looking at the military base in front of him, looking at the densely packed patrol personnel not far away, a smile appeared on Su Luo's face. This electrical elemental transformation ability is really good. It was so easy to slip into the base without anyone noticing. Next, he would go in and find Luke Cage. Su Luo immediately plunged into the military base inside the mountain. Today I have a headache and can't continue writing, so I'll stop here. The end. 090 The strengthening of the ADP circulatory system. Su Luo explodes and hates it. 1. Dajong begs to subscribe. Inside the safe house, Elizabeth is watching cartoons in the living room. On her shoulder, little Spider-Man is lying. Both pairs of big eyes are watching the cartoons with great interest. When they get excited, the two little ones are also very excited. Hurry up and find him. Hurry up. Elizabeth waves her fist. Little Spider-Man also clenches his two front paws and shakes. After a while, Claude walks over. He says, after finishing this episode, it's time to start studying. Hearing this, Elizabeth instantly becomes dejected and loses her enthusiasm. But little Spider-Man on Elizabeth's body stands up, his eyes shining. The two of them form a sharp contrast. Claude rubs his forehead and says, "Little E, look at others, then look at yourself. Is studying really that painful?" Elizabeth quickly nods. Claude helplessly continues, "We haven't been going out recently, and disguises are not allowed. Because there have been incidents in New York recently, many homeless people have gone missing. For safety reasons, it's best to stay at home." Elizabeth obediently nods, saying, "Okay." In a dim place, homeless people lie on shelves with long transparent tubes in their hands. Blood flows down the tubes. In the center below, there is a coffin. Each tube is inserted into the coffin, and the blood flows into it. Some homeless people have been drained of blood, looking like mummies, but they're not dead. Their eyes are still open, and their eyeballs are moving. There is no pain on their faces, only a blank expression. After all the blood is drained from everyone, the coffin is opened, and an infinite cold-blooded aura emerges from it. A pair of cold and fair 5 fingers reach out, grabbing the edge of the coffin, and a figure sits up. It is Black Void. Her hair has grown longer, reaching her waist, and she is now in her 82nd generation. In front of her, a group of people with folded hands kneel respectfully on the ground. "How are the sacrifices this time?" "Leader," says the elder of the folded hands. Black Void says, "Very good. I finally have a part of the power of the evil god. Very powerful." She squints slightly. "Next, I will go find that man." The elder asks, "Why is the evil god so obsessed with that guy?" Black Void says, "Because that person has a strong body with amazing cell activity. It is the best vessel for the evil god, and if properly excavated, it will become the strongest Black Void in history." Black Void continues, "The people we sent out last time still couldn't capture him. It seems at this time, I have to personally take action." As she says this, a thick black aura overflows from her slender fingers. Inside the military base, the various lines are very complex. Su Luo is running at high speed, running around, almost making him dizzy. After passing through one room after another, finally, he arrives in a laboratory in front of a certain plug. Suddenly, the scene inside comes into Su Luo's view. Inside a closed instrument, Luke Cage is lying, special liquid flowing over his body. Various long tubes are inserted around him. At this moment, Luke Cage has his eyes closed, as if he has fallen asleep. But Su Luo can tell from the sound of his heartbeat and breathing that he is awake. Around the instrument, a large number of researchers in white coats are busy. Suddenly, a figure enters Su Luo's view. Instantly, it makes his mind freeze. It is Breaki. I saw the other party sitting calmly in the corner, watching the experiment with a faint gaze. He couldn't help but think to himself, sure enough, Breaki is here specifically to oversee this research, to prevent any unexpected incidents. Su Luo looked at the series of operations below, feeling somewhat puzzled. This doesn't seem like research on Luke Cage's ability, but rather like injecting something related to strengthening. What are these guys doing? Suluo didn't act rashly because it wasn't the right time yet. He decided to first find out what the National Department was planning to do. Seeing this, Suluo immediately rushed towards another location. Soon, he arrived at the outside laboratory. There was no one here. It seemed like everyone had gone to work in the laboratory. Suluo transformed back into human form and landed on the ground. He approached the computer and quickly typed on the keyboard, swiftly disabling the surveillance in the studio. Continuous loop of no one on the screen. All of this was completed almost instantly. After finishing these tasks, Suluo continued to type on the keyboard, accessing Luke Cage's information. Soon, the relevant information for this experiment popped up. Suluo's eyes quickly scanned through the data. So Luke Cage's previous ability was defective. Because the experiment wasn't completed, the ability was defective, the upper limit was locked, and most importantly, there were significant flaws that would gradually consume his life. Looking at Luke Cage's data, Suluo narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't expect that Luke Cage's experiment was actually incomplete. It seemed that the previous experiment had been tampered with by someone else, and it was originally imperfect. And this imperfect experiment unexpectedly led to the emergence of Luke Cage's ability. But at the same time, it also created the flaws in Luke Cage's ability. He continued to read further, looking at the researcher studies on Luke Cage and the related data. Suluo quickly scanned through the data, memorizing the information in his mind. After being accustomed to the data, Suluo saw the corresponding completion plan experiment. Looking at the completion plan, Suluo murmured, "The direction of this completion plan is completely correct. To complete Luke Cage's ability and compensate for its original flaws. Only then can the corresponding genes and ability of Luke Cage be complete, and only then can we conduct research experiments and obtain more complete and accurate data. In this way, we can study the secrets of Luke Cage's ability and replicate it. The overall direction is completely correct, very good." Suluo's eyes brightened slightly. This experiment was completely flawless. It wasn't just random experimentation. In that case, Luke Cage's ability will be greatly enhanced. Next, if I replicate Luke Cage's complete ability, I will gain a much stronger steel body than expected. Thinking of this, Suluo felt delighted. He never expected that Luke Cage's ability was incomplete and could be completed. He never expected that he could gain a much stronger and tougher body than he had anticipated. And after completing Luke Cage's ability, there will be even greater potential for upgrades. Suluo continued reading. At this moment, his ears twitched. Several researchers were walking towards the office. Through their conversation, Suluo learned that these researchers were on duty. To avoid arousing suspicion, Suluo transformed into an electric current and once again traveled through the circuits. Suluo now had a basic understanding of the situation. He was ready to continue to the laboratory, find an opportunity, and take Luke Cage away. But before that, Suluo transformed into an electric current and swiftly flew into the control room. Inside the control room, a group of people were tapping on keyboards. On the wall in front, there were many screens hanging. They displayed surveillance footage from various parts of the base, as well as data on weapons and equipment.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.